Chapter 208. Yu Yan formed a hand seal with one hand, protecting Zhu Yao's divine sense. With a sunken voice he said, "There's too much spiritual energy in your body. You have to make preparations to form your Azoth core at any time." Azoth core. She was only at the early stages of foundation. Was there a need to forcefully level up like this? The surrounding thunder rumbled even louder. That sword that was even taller than a mountain, in an instant, was filled with lightning sparks, as though it carried the power to destroy the heavens and earth. The lightning spiritual energy in the air grew even denser, giving off a suffocating feeling. Calm your mind and focus on forming your Azoth core. Yu Yan placed down a few formations to stabilize spiritual energy, and then sat next to her. Behind him, an illusory figure of a white dragon appeared, coiling around the two of them, helping her repair her damaged meridians. The lightning spiritual energy in Zhu Yao's body was very unstable, as though it was about to break out of her body. Her current avatar was a wood spirit vein holder. If she wanted to absorb these rampaging spiritual energy to form her Azoth core, she had to first convert the lightning spiritual energy into wood spiritual energy, before guiding it into her dantian. However, because the lightning spiritual energy entered her body so suddenly, her conversion speed was far from being able to catch up with the rampaging spiritual energy in her body. The moment she converted the wood spiritual energy, before she could even guide it into her dantian, it was first dispersed by the other lightning spiritual energy. She could feel the meridians in her entire body were filled with lightning spiritual energy, as though they were about to explode. The blood at the corner of her lips was flowing out uncontrollably. The hell? What kind of grudge did these lightning spiritual energy have with her? Why were they always so uncooperative? If this continued, even if her master was helping her from the side, her meridians would still be completely destroyed by the lightning spiritual energy that entered her body. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. In for a penny, in for a pound. She could not be bothered with converting anymore, and immediately guided the lightning spiritual energy into her dantian. In an instant, a heart-wrenching pain spread throughout her entire body, and Zhu Yao's entire body began to tremble. Yu Yan sensed her sudden actions as well. Just as he was about to stop her, he suddenly blanked. How could this be? The rampaging lightning spiritual energy had stopped. From the moment the lightning spiritual energy entered her dantian, the spiritual energy that had been charging into her meridians suddenly calmed down. As though it had received some sort of order, it began to flow smoothly into her dantian. Yu Yan frowned, and did not stop her. Instead, he retracted his cultivation clone, and began to seriously observe his disciple's transformation. Although her meridians were fine, her dantian was about to explode. An unfamiliar spiritual aura invaded her body. She was in so much pain that she could no longer feel anything. She could only guide it mechanically. Her originally smooth and gentle dantian began to slowly become restless and hot. It was somewhat similar to when she had the lightning spirit root in the past. No wonder spirit roots could be modified. Zhu Yao suddenly had this thought. With the mentality of treating a dead horse as a living horse, he sped up the absorption of spiritual energy. Enduring the heart-wrenching pain, he tried to use the lightning spiritual energy inside. Unexpectedly, there was really a reaction. The spiritual energy that entered her dantian obediently circulated according to her thoughts. She directly wrapped the spiritual energy around her entire dantian, and slowly transformed it into a familiar shape. Then, he guided out the remaining spiritual energy, and wrapped it around his meridians, forcefully expanding and absorbing it. In the beginning, the damage to her meridians was even more severe. Gradually, the lightning spiritual energy that wrapped around her meridians began to automatically repair all the meridians in her body. When all the spiritual energy in her dantian was used up, her meridians were already brand new, and the lightning spiritual energy that made her feel oppressed just now was powerless and friendly. Yu Yan immediately dispelled the surrounding formation. In an instant, a large amount of lightning spiritual energy, as though they had finally received an order, crazily poured into Zhu Yao's body. Not even a moment later, her initially empty dantian was once again filled up. This time, when the lightning spiritual energy entered her body, There was no longer that heart-wrenching pain earlier. Instead, there was a comfortable feeling. However, as the amount of spiritual energy increased, a swollen feeling rose. She was very familiar with this feeling. It was the barrier of a breakthrough in her cultivation. She did not stop either, as she continued to guide the spiritual energy into her body. A few minutes later, she could faintly hear the sound of something bursting out of the ground. Her meridians instantly expanded to twice their original size. And her cultivation was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye as well. From the second level of foundation, to the third level, fourth level, fifth level, all the way to the paragon level. That barrier had become even more obvious. The spiritual energy in her body was so full that it looked as though it was about to overflow. Finally, it was time for her to form her Azoth core. Forming her Azoth core once again was very simple to Zhu Yao. Following the method in her memory, she began to rotate and compress spiritual energy in the same direction. She only used 6 hours, and her Azoth core was formed. Her cultivation, however, did not stop rising. First level of Azoth core, second level, third level, fifth level. Only after reaching the Azoth core paragon did it stop. Zhu Yao took a deep breath, stopped guiding spiritual energy into her body, and then opened her eyes. Master. Amen. Yu Yan responded. Pulling his disciple's hand, he checked her pulse, and then sent a strand of spiritual energy into her body. Only after realizing that she was completely fine, did he heave a sigh of relief. Mistress. Sesame pounced over as well, and with a face full of snot and tears, it rubbed against her body. Great, you're fine. I was so worried about this beastie. Zhu Yao pressed her palm towards its face that was about to come over, and pushed it back. Go away. You. Mistress, how can you be so heartless? It said with a wronged look. Scram. Find your four-legged beastie. This old lady only likes her master who has 2 legs. Master, my spirit vein. She recalled the changes in her body. Yu Yan nodded. You currently possess the lightning spirit vein. The hell? She really made the right bet. Master, can spirit veins be changed? Originally it couldn't. Yu Yan frowned. Spirit veins were all innate. Although there were some heavenly treasures that could wash away one of the spirit veins, he had never heard of anyone being able to create a desired spirit vein out of thin air. Most probably, it was because you were familiar with the lightning spirit vein in the past, which allowed you to succeed by luck. Others might not be able to do it. His own disciple seemed to always be able to discover things that others were unaware of. Was this a good thing or a bad thing? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. Indeed, earlier, she had been guiding the lightning spiritual energy to modify her meridians and dantian according to her memories. If what she attracted today was not lightning spiritual energy, most likely, she would have died a long time ago. Yu Yan even asked about the current situation. Zhu Yao told him about the incident where she encountered the Rise Fire Beast and fell into this ruin, as well as her encounter with Sesame. The two of them were talking seriously, and neither of them had noticed that the mountain-like sword behind them suddenly stopped its thunderous roars. It slowly rose up and suddenly, its blade swept horizontally, flying towards their direction. Yu Yan's heart clenched. Hugging onto his disciple, he was just about to dodge, but he was a step too late. In a blink of an eye, that sword turned into a ray of white light, and immediately flew over, entering Yu Yan's glabella. Zhu Yao simply saw an afterimage in the air. Master! Zhu Yao's heart clenched, as she pulled onto her master. She felt as though her heart was about to jump out. Master! She once again felt that sense of panic. She knew how it felt when Little Wimp died, as though the sky had collapsed. Please be all right. Yu Yan slowly lowered his head. His face carried a hint of confusion. Yu Yao. How are you? Does it hurt anywhere? She anxiously sized him up, and the only thing left was to remove his clothes to check if he was injured. I'm fine. How could he be fine? She clearly saw that sword turn into a ray of light, and directly pass through his body. Yu Yao. He stroked his disciple's head. After pondering for a moment, he immediately pulled her into his embrace. He was a little surprised that his disciple, who had never been afraid of death, was actually trembling. Believe in your master, I'm fine. Only then did Zhu Yao calm down, and her rationality began to return. Then earlier, she turned to look. The gigantic sword that was still floating in the air earlier had now disappeared. Even the dense lightning spiritual energy in the air had disappeared without a trace. Yu Yan frowned and looked at his own palm a little blankly. A moment later, he spoke up with a hint of doubt. Yu Yao, your master's cultivation seems to have suddenly recovered. What did he mean? I recovered my original cultivation. Then you're now demigod. That's too fast, isn't it? Not only that. Yu Yan reached out a hand and opened his palm in front of her. With a flash of white light, a small sword filled with lightning sparks suddenly appeared in his palm. Zhu Yao's eyes fiercely widened. Wasn't this that mountain-like sword from earlier? Why was it here? And it had even turned into such a miniature one. Even the bug word on the sword had disappeared. I'm not sure of the reason either. Yu Yan frowned and explained. Earlier, this object directly flew into my divine sense and merged with it. Merged with my divine sense, then isn't that? Yu Yan nodded. It has become my life artifact. Wasn't it said that life artifacts had to be nurtured in the divine sense at the Azoth stage? Master, is it really alright for you to suddenly nurture an unfamiliar sword in there? Will you get indigestion, hey? My spirit vein has changed as well. I've recovered my original lightning spirit vein. Just like that earlier? Emin nodded. Flip's table. Why was it so painful when she changed her spirit vein? Not only did her master's cultivation recover, he was even fine. Zhu Yao was filled with malice. Zhu Yao felt that it was time for her to head back and rest. However, when she recalled that her master's cultivation had already recovered, and Sesame had returned as well, with 2 more weapons of mass destruction by their side, no matter how powerful the Beast Lord was, they could still win by outnumbering him. No, it was 2 against 1. She suddenly had the urge to look for trouble in the demonic beast realm. What should she do? Yu Yao, I can't go back with you. Why? Zhu Yao was startled. Her disciple even needed to bully others with her strength. Yu Yan sighed and stroked his stupid disciple's head. That sword has recovered master's cultivation. I know. Didn't you say it before? Isn't that even better? Yu Yan shook his head, looking as though he was disappointed with his disciple's intelligence. He reached out his hand to hug his disciple, planning to demonstrate it personally. In a flash, the 2 of them had already left the underground ruins and returned to that forest. Zhu Yao had yet to react. Just what did he mean by that? The entire sky suddenly darkened, and layers of tribulation clouds instantly filled the entire sky. This is Ascension Lightning Tribulation. Why the hell was there this? Yao, I've recovered my cultivation. I know you've already said it 3 times. Wait a minute, it couldn't be. You've recovered the cultivation of a high deity? The laws of the heavenly Tao suppressed my cultivation, so I'm currently a demigod. However, I'm a high deity after all. Back then, that mustard seed dimensional space had an ancient formation that evaded the laws, so I wasn't detected. If I were to come out. He raised his head to look at the sky. Zhu Yao followed his gaze and looked at the clouds as well, only to see the sky instantly turning snow-white, and a bolt of tribulation lightning flashed across the horizon. Yu Yan released her. Being forced by the heavenly Tao, Master has to ascend to the higher realm. As expected, the 9 heavenly lightning bolts descended straight in Yu Yan's direction, bringing along a pressure that filled the entire sky. Boom, they struck Zhu Yao's body. Zhu Yao, that Yu Yan, that in an instant Zhu Yao, who was struck into charcoal, puffed out a mouthful of black smoke. Master, can I discuss something with you? Amen. Next time, when there's lightning, don't pull me over to watch, alright? Will you die if you don't screw your disciple over? In order to not ascend, her master had no choice but to stay in the mustard seed dimensional space which originally held the god's artifact. Zhu Yao had initially thought that after her master had recovered his cultivation, she would be able to do whatever she wanted. She never expected that it would be completely useless. The setting of having to ascend as soon as he came out was simply too torturous, alright? If he had known earlier, he would have been better off with a Jean Dan. In the end, she still had to farm the bug herself. His heart felt stifled. Mistress, someone's here. Sesame nudged Zhu Yao. Oh yes, she also has a beast. No, we have to find her. A familiar voice came from afar. 3 men and 2 women walked over from not too far away. It was Yi Ling's group. However, other than the 4 people she recognized, there was also an unfamiliar man. He was also in the Aurus Core realm, and he had a handsome appearance. Between his brows, there was even some dignity of a person in a high position. At this moment, he was looking at Yi Ling affectionately. Did the number of people in the harem increase again? Sure enough, he was tall, rich, and handsome, an Iron Mary Sue. They seemed to be arguing about something. Junior Marshal's sister Lin Xiang. Qi Ping took a step forward and said to Lin Xiang, "It's not that we don't want to find her, but we have already searched for 2 days, yet, we still haven't seen her figure. Furthermore, the terrain of this labyrinth is complicated and filled with traps. Continuing to search is just a waste of time." "That's right, Senior Marshal's sister Lin," Yi Ling gently said. "I'm very anxious about Senior Marshal Sister Zhu's disappearance as well, but Senior Marshal Brother Qi's injuries have yet to fully recover as well. How can you only care about your own selfish desires?" "Selfish desires?" Lin Xiang was angered to the point of laughing. "Yi Ling, are you blind? If she hadn't lured that demonic beast away, would you guys still be standing here perfectly fine? Now that she's gone, you guys aren't even willing to look for her." Senior Marshal's sister Lin. Yi Ling's eyes reddened, and she looked as though she was about to cry from being wronged. "That's not what I meant. It's just that we've been searching for so long. Furthermore, if she had told us earlier that it was a 6th-ranked demonic beast, we wouldn't have." "What did you say?" Lin Xiang was instantly enraged. "She didn't tell you? You're the one who didn't believe her at all. Furthermore, she saved you and saved all of us. Yet you're still saying such words. Do you even have a conscience?" Senior Marshal's sister Lin. Yi Ling's tears began to fall. The 3 men present instantly had pained expressions. "Enough, Junior Marshal's sister Lin. This isn't Ling Er's fault anyway." Lan Qi glared at Lin Xiang a little furiously. Lin Xiang glanced at the 3 of them and coldly snorted. "If you guys aren't going to look for her, I'll look for her myself." So it was to look for her. Zhu Yao gave Lin Xiang girly a thumbs up. She sure had the spirit of brotherhood. It seemed like in this world, Mary Sue weren't the only idiots. There were still people with normal values. She felt a little gratified. Just as she was about to step forward, she suddenly heard Sesame, who had been standing next to her, muttering, "In this world, there's actually such an otherworldly beauty." Zhu Yao's feet turned. Chapter 209. Fuck, let go of otherworldly beauty. Okay? It's just a child. Sesame. Zhu Yao called out. Sesame, however, did not have any reaction at all. It simply looked at Yi Ling's direction in a daze, as though it was possessed, and unknowingly approached her. This scene was exactly the same as when the fox by Yi first met Yi Ling. Zhu Yao simply felt her heart sink for a moment. The people on the other side had noticed the commotion here as well. Zhu Yao grew anxious, and immediately kept Sesame into her divine sense. Mistress. Sesame, who had already reverted back to his beastie form, had a confused look. Sesame, wake up. Though Zhu Yao really wanted to chat with him about life, seeing that the few people were already walking over, she had no choice but to say, "I'll tell you later." Senior sister Zhu. Lin Xiang was the first to run over. She looked at her anxiously for a while, and her eyes were slightly red. "It's really you. Are you all right?" "It's okay." She still had a good impression of Lin Xiang. Fortunately, Lin Xiang heaved a sigh of relief. Senior sister Zhu, it's great that you're fine. Yi Ling also walked over. She still had that innocent look on her face. "We've been looking for you for 2 days. I didn't expect you to come out before us." In other words, there was a hint of resentment towards her for abandoning everyone and leaving the labyrinth alone. Lin Xiang's face instantly darkened. "Oh. So Junior Marshal's sister, Yi has been looking for me?" Zhu Yao smiled. "Earlier. Why did I hear that you guys were going to leave me behind and return to the sect first? Yiling's face paled. Evidently, she did not expect that Zhu Yao had heard everything she said earlier, and for a moment, she felt a little embarrassed. He turned around and looked at the people behind him for help. It's good that she's out. Flower Guardian Lan Qi immediately responded, however. He was even more dissatisfied with Zhu Yao, especially the unfamiliar man beside her. Although he hadn't said a word, the way he looked at her was filled with hostility. Seeing Yiling being humiliated, Lin Xiang was evidently very happy, as she affectionately pulled onto Yiling, Senior Martial Sister Zhu. Where's that rise fire beast? How did you escape? We followed the place where you fell, but we couldn't find any trace of you. The underground is very big. I didn't see the demonic beast after I fell down. Naturally, Zhu Yao couldn't tell the truth, so she could only lie. I circled around inside for 2 days before I found the exit. Although Yiling and the others were somewhat suspicious, they couldn't find any flaws. After all, the underground terrain was indeed very complicated. Oh right, where's Bai Yi? She did not notice before, but upon closer inspection, she realized that one was missing. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expression changed. Especially Yiling, her eyes were filled with tears, as though she was about to cry. She looked at Zhu Yao resentfully. Senior Martial Sister Zhu, why didn't you come up earlier? Junior Brother Bai, he's already in the labyrinth looking for you. The more Yiling spoke, the sadder she became. Before she could finish, she had already turned around and laid her head on the stranger's shoulder, sobbing. What's wrong with him? Zhu Yao frowned. She could no longer be bothered with the fact that Yiling was constantly pulling aggro for her. I don't know which formation mechanism Junior Brother Bai triggered, but he's already lost inside. Lan Qi finished Yiling's unfinished words, and glanced at her with a hint of reproach. Then he looked at the stranger and said, if Brother Mulu wasn't proficient in formations and brought us out, I'm afraid we would have been trapped inside as well. Qi Ping said with an indignant look as well. This is all your fault. If we weren't looking for you. Emph. Oh, they actually wanted to blame it on her even though they had lost the person. How can you say that? Lin Xiang was instantly enraged. Just as she was about to step forward and argue, Zhu Yao pulled her back. Sizing up the 4 of them, she coldly laughed. Then I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have lured that rise fire beast away in the first place, and fell into that labyrinth. Don't worry, if something like this happens again, I will definitely watch you die. The faces of the 4 of them instantly paled. Yet they couldn't find any words to refute her. She had seen plenty of ungrateful people, but this was the first time she had seen people who were so fresh and refined. Zhu Yao couldn't be bothered with these retards, and turned to look at the man called Mulu. If she remembered correctly, this was the Demon King in Yiling's harem, right? It was no wonder his entire body was filled with demonic energy. This fellow Taoist Mu, since you were able to bring everyone out of that labyrinth, why didn't you help find Junior Martial Brother Bai along the way? Mulu raised his brows and smiled. A hint of seductive aura faintly leaked out from between his brows. It was so alluring that even Yiling, who was in his embrace, was dumbfounded. Fellow Taoist Zhu, it's not that I'm unwilling, but that place's terrain is extremely complicated. I'm unable to find that fellow Taoist Bai's location either. His answer was watertight. Is that so? Zhu Yao said with a laugh. And I had thought that since you and Bai Yi both belong to the Fox clan, though you have a few extra tails, there should be some special ways to communicate with each other, right? The smile on Mulu's face instantly disappeared. Don't you slander me. Mulu did not speak, but his follower Qi Ping jumped out. How can Brother Mulu be a demon? This time, it was Zhu Yao's turn to be shocked. They actually did not know that Mulu was a demon. Though human practitioners and demon practitioners lived in harmony, those who were not of the same race would definitely have different intentions. From the bottom of their hearts, the two still did not trust each other. This was also the reason why Bai Yi had been unhappy ever since he entered Blue Parasol sect. Zhu Yao sized up the few of them for a moment. Are you all blind? His entire body was filled with demonic energy. Could none of them see through it? Big Brother Mu Yu. Yiling raised her head a little doubtfully as well. The calm expression on Mulu's face finally could no longer be faked. His expression changed, and a moment later, he straightforwardly admitted it. Fellow Taoist Zhu, you have good eyesight. You were actually able to see through my true form with a single glance. Sorry she wasn't blind. Only then did the crowd reveal looks of disbelief. But, that fellow Taoist Bai, I'm indeed unable to find his whereabouts. After saying that, he looked towards Yiling with a guilty expression. Linger, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to save your junior martial brother. Big brother Mu, I know. Yiling looked at him with an understanding expression. It's already not easy for you to bring us out. The two of them looked at each other with deep emotions, while the two men at the side were silently saddened. Seeing such a scene, Zhu Yao simply wanted to find a place to puke. If she did not know about the plot beforehand, she might have really thought that Mulu was powerless despite having the heart. However, this so-called underground labyrinth was the nest of this nine-tailed fox, Mulu, in the first place. He had cultivated here for over 100 years, so it was impossible for him to not know the terrain. In the beginning, because of that god's artifact underground, she had yet to connect the ruins with the labyrinth where the Demon King lived. But now that she thought about it carefully, when she fell into the underground, she had once activated a teleportation formation. Hence, she was teleported to that ancient ruin. In other words, this ruin was actually divided into two floors. The first floor was most likely the labyrinth where Yiling and the others entered to look for her, and the other floor was the place where the god's artifact was placed. Mulu had been in the labyrinth for so many years, and the formations and mechanisms inside were laid down by him as well. It was impossible for him to not know where Bai Yi was. The only explanation was he did it on purpose. Nine-tailed foxes were kings among demons, and they were naturally prideful. He could tolerate other equally outstanding men by Yiling's side, but he might not be able to tolerate a lowly member of his own clan. Though Zhu Yao was not interested in their love-hate relationship, she did not wish for someone to push Bai Yi's matter onto her head. In other words, you really can't find Bai Yi? Zhu Yao once again confirmed. I'm powerless. Mulu answered. It's fine. Zhu Yao chuckled. I can find him. She immediately released her divine sense and probed into the labyrinth. In an instant, it covered the entire underground floor, and at the same time, her might poured out without any restraint. Everyone present, other than Lin Xiang whom she had intentionally avoided, had pale expressions. Cold sweat faintly appeared on their foreheads, and Yiling's blood was churning. If not for Mulu protecting her by the side, her meridians would have long been damaged. Qi Ping, however, was not as fortunate, as he instantly puked out a mouthful of blood. Junior martial brother Qi. Lan Qi was startled. He looked towards Zhu Yao, and was about to speak up. However, Zhu Yao spoke up first. Found him. She cast an art, raised her hand and shouted. Heavenly descent. A series of thunderous rumbles resounded. Thousands of heavenly lightning bolts struck straight towards an empty space a few dozen meters away from them, instantly creating a deep crater. Zhu Yao did not care about the dumbfounded crowd, and immediately flew towards that area. Lowering her head, she saw a yellow fox with mixed fur, curled up several meters below with its tail between its legs. With a flick of her sleeves, she instantly used a mystic art to drag it out. Bending her finger, she tapped on his furry forehead, and forcefully restored him back to his human form. A moment later, a man dressed in a shitty yellow robe appeared in front of her. It was no wonder this fox had a fetish for clothes. This yellow fur was really ugly. Junior martial brother Bai. Yiling excitedly charged over to make her presence known. Senior martial sister Yi. Bai Yi was only startled for a moment, before he immediately sprinted into Mary Sue's embrace. His face was filled with the joy of a reunion. It's great that you're fine. You don't even know how anxious I was. Senior martial sister, I'm fine. For senior martial sister, I will persevere. Junior martial brother Bai, senior martial sister Yi. Heavens. Lin Xiang suddenly interrupted from the side. She looked at the two of them with a face full of ridicule and snorted coldly. Just now, I don't know who it was that insisted on returning to the sect. Ling's expression paled as she anxiously said to Bai Yi. It's not like that, Junior Marshal Brother Bai. I just wanted to return to the sect to call for more manpower. I know. Bai Yi said without any regrets. I know Senior Marshal's sister will definitely come and save me. The one who saved you isn't your Senior Marshal's sister, Yi. Lin Yi coldly laughed as he turned to look at Zhu Yao. The two's expressions stiffened, and only then did they recall Zhu Yao who was behind them. Bai Yi's expression, however, carried an additional hint of guilt, as he respectfully bowed towards Zhu Yao. Thank you, Senior Marshal Sister Zhu, for saving me. It's nothing. Zhu Yao glanced at the two of them, and said without any trace of politeness, This is what you should be thanking me for. Lin Xiang giggled, as she hurriedly walked over. With a curious look she asked, Senior Marshal Sister Zhu. No, I have to call you Senior Marshal Aunt Zhu now. They had to call anyone with an Azoth stage cultivation and above Senior Marshal Aunt, with the exception of Lan Qi, who lowered his own status in order to woo girls. How did you suddenly form your Azoth core? And you even learned such a powerful mystic art? Everyone looked over in an instant, especially Lan Qi and Mu Lu. One of them was an early-stage Azoth core, while the other was a late-stage Azoth core. In this world, they were already considered to have extremely good aptitudes. However, they never expected that in just 2 days, Zhu Yao, who was initially an early-stage Azoth core practitioner, would directly form her Azoth core, and even rise to an Azoth core paragon. Mu Lu was a demon type, so he was most afraid of tribulation lightning. Even now, he was still faintly afraid of the heavenly lightning earlier. I just had an epiphany when I was on the verge of death in the labyrinth, Zhu Yao casually explained. Since Bai Yi has already been found, let's head back. Lin Xiang knew that she wasn't willing to speak further, so she no longer asked. The few of them flew on their swords with various expressions. Just when they left not too far away, a series of rumbling sounds could suddenly be heard. As though an earthquake had occurred on the ground of the entire forest, it began to collapse on a large scale. For a moment, the mountains shook and the earth shook. Something was slowly rising from the ground, and half of the entire forest was currently being uprooted. Countless rocks tumbled down, and trees toppled over. It was as though a layer of outer shell had been peeled off the entire rising ground. A majestic palace was revealed. It rose higher and higher, and finally, it floated in midair. Everyone stared blankly at this large-scale palace that suddenly flew out from the ground, and they were all dumbfounded. A moment later, the surroundings of that palace suddenly flashed with lightning, and the rumbling sounds of thunder constantly resounded in their ears. A moment later, those lightning bolts actually gathered into several gigantic spiritual swords that were as tall as mountains. Like guards, they surrounded the surroundings of the palace, forming an impenetrable large-scale sword formation. It was even faintly emitting out a pressure that caused one's heart to palpitate. This formation was 5 Elemental 9 Rotations Heavenly Lightning Formation. Yao. A familiar voice transmission suddenly sounded in the depths of her heart, and it was still the same calm tone. No matter where your master is, you must remember that I will always protect you. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips could not help but curl up, and her heart was filled with emotions. I know. If you really can't beat it. That voice continued. Then run back to your master. Don't try to court death. Just how little confidence do you have in your own disciple? Senior Marshal Sister Zhu. Lan Qi looked towards Zhu Yao. What do you think this is? I don't know either. Zhu Yao acted dumb. She couldn't possibly say that her own son had raised the underground ruins, right? Let's return to the sect first. Everyone exchanged glances, and had no choice but to first return to the sect to report about this anomaly. Hence, they sped towards Blue Parasol sect. Zhu Yao was thinking about Sesame, so she flew the fastest. She faintly felt that she seemed to have forgotten something. She couldn't recall it at that moment. Forget it, let's talk about it in the future. In the ruins, a rise-fire beast that had yet to ascend into the sky was seriously staring at the 6 crossroads. You, Lord's mistress, why isn't she back yet to hold my paws? So impatient, so impatient. Lowering his head, he glanced at his own paws, and began to count them one by one. She will come back to hold my paws. She won't come back to hold my paws. She will come back to hold my paws. Sesame, just what's going on with you? The moment she returned to her own little courtyard, Zhu Yao placed down a few isolation formations and began to immerse her own divine sense. She stared at that demonic beast which had already returned to its original form. I'm warning you, I don't mind who you fancy, but that Mary Sue Yiling is definitely out of the question. You better wake up a little. Who's Yiling? Sesame tilted its beast head and twisted its body. Mistress, why did you suddenly hide this beastie in your divine sense? This one has been sealed for so long, and it's rare for me to come out. I just wanted to go out and keep a lookout. Stop it. Earlier you were still staring at me in a daze. Zhu Yao ignored its act of cuteness. She immediately materialized Yiling's image in her divine sense, and sternly said, Sesame, I understand your feelings as a single beastie, but if you want to find a partner, you should find a good one first. Sesame was startled, and then, it shook its beast head like a rattledrum. I don't like two-legged ones, I only like four-legged beasties. Then what happened to you earlier? It clearly did not even blink its eyes. Earlier. Sesame had a confused look. As though it had recalled something, it suddenly blanked. I don't know either. When it looked at the image again, its expression became even more confused, and its entire beast head was about to turn into a bun. Her body seems to have something on it. I couldn't help but. What do you mean? This answer was out of Zhu Yao's expectations. Mistress, I don't know either. When I saw her earlier, I suddenly felt like getting closer to her, just like. Sesame frowned and scratched its head with its paws. After pondering for a long while, its eyes shone. Just like back then when Mistress released her dragon's might. Chapter 210. Back then, the reason why Zhu Yao was able to release her dragon's might was because she was a dragon in the first place, and dragons belong to the god race, which had a bloodline suppression effect on demonic beasts. If Yiling had it as well, could she be a god as well? Zhu Yao immediately denied this. Sesame merely said it was similar, and did not confirm that it was a dragon's might. Furthermore, her bloodline suppression back then should be an impulse to make demonic beasts submit to her. And Sesame's reaction when it saw Yiling was clearly an infatuated expression. Bai Yi was the same back then as well. If she was a god, then it could only be effective on demonic beasts. Bai Yi was just a demonic practitioner. Yiling most likely only had a special trait that could make people infatuated with her, and it might be similar to a charm art. However, it was clearly a lot more advanced than an impulsive charm art. If she really had to define it, it could be understood as a powerful hormone amplification device. Wait a minute. Could this be her Mary Sue halo? The men in her harem all fell in love with her because of this? And they never looked back on the path of idiocy? Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that in the plot, the people who fell in love with her, other than her master and senior brother who raised her, seemed to be all of them. They just took a glance at her in the crowd, and they couldn't forget her face. Having a physique like this was a little too legendary. Wasn't it? Was she really just a regular practitioner? Or did she have something on her that could trigger this physique? Mistress, after I entered your divine sense, that feeling disappeared. Sesame weakly added. Zhu Yao was startled. Her divine sense had the effect of isolating hormones? She immediately released Sesame. Are you sure? Sesame automatically turned into a small ball, about the size of a plush toy. Its little head nodded strongly. Mistress, after you placed me in your divine sense, that feeling of being summoned disappeared. Then, other than wanting to get closer to her, did you feel anything different? Zhu Yao asked. Sesame pondered for a moment, and then shook its head. The time was too short, I couldn't feel anything. In other words, she couldn't be sure if Yiling was born with a Mary Sue, or if she relied on an external object to cultivate her Mary Sue. It seemed like she had to let Sesame meet her again in order to confirm. Zhu Yao never expected that this opportunity would come so quickly. Less than an hour after she returned to her room, the sect leader sent someone to invite her to the main hall. This time, the disciple who came to deliver the message was not as arrogant as before. Instead, he respectfully called her martial aunt. He led her all the way to the main hall. Zhu Yao had Sesame conceal itself into a small demonic beast and stand on her shoulder, following her on her journey. On one hand, it would be convenient for it to observe Yiling. On the other hand, if it were to show any abnormalities, Zhu Yao would be able to store it into her divine sense to isolate it. She could actually guess the reason why the sect leader called her over this time. He probably wanted to rope her in after seeing that she had formed her gold core. Greetings to the 3 sovereigns, sect master and the various elders. The sect master of the Blue Parasol sect immediately stopped her and said politely, "Junior Martial Sister Zhu, there's no need to be so polite." Ever since she entered, the people in the hall were all shocked. According to Yiling's report, Zhu Yao had comprehended her Azoth core at the moment of life and death. Epiphany was a person's luck. But now that he saw her, he realized that her cultivation had already reached the golden core perfection. What kind of epiphany could allow a person to instantly rise from the early stages of foundation to the golden core perfection? Everyone was a little doubtful in their hearts, though they did not show it on their faces. Thank you, Sect Master. Zhu Yao's face project was done. So what if they were doubtful? Even if she did not say anything, she believed that no one could do anything about it. Everyone had different expressions. Only Yuing, who was standing behind Sovereign Xianyin, smiled, calling out, "Mother." He automatically walked over and habitually tugged onto the corner of her robe. He still had the appearance of a 12 to 13-year-old child. Zhu Yao reached out her hand to stroke his head, as a form of greeting. Yu Ying's smile grew even deeper. His eyes intentionally or unintentionally swept past her shoulder, as he obediently stood next to her. Zhu Yao looked around. As expected, other than the higher-ups of Blue Parasol sect, Yiling and the rest were all here as well. Lin Xiang was even standing behind the sect master, winking at her. "I wonder why sect master has summoned me here?" Zhu Yao went straight to the point, however. She glanced at Yiling, who was standing next to Xian Su, from the corner of her eyes. She immediately transmitted her voice. "Sesame, how is it? Did you see anything?" What responded to her was a series of threatening hisses. The scales on Sesame's entire body stood up. It lowered its body, bared its teeth, and made an attacking stance. However, it was not aimed at Yiling, but at Yuing. "Mistress, I really hate this person. I can bite him, can I bite him?" She had almost forgotten about how Yuing had injured it back then. "Yuing, just how hated are you? Even if you changed your avatar, Sesame still wants to bite you." Zhu Yao looked at little Yuing with sympathy, and the latter replied her with an innocent smile. "Enough, Sesame. Let's get down to business. After all, he was her son." "Congratulations on forming your Azoth core, Junior Martial Sister Zhu," the Blue Parasol sect master said with a friendly smile. Although Junior Martial Sister Zhu encountered a 6th-rank demonic beast, it can be considered as a blessing in disguise. The reason why I invited you here today is to discuss Junior Martial Sister's promotion to an elder. I wonder which one Junior Martial Sister is more proficient in? Talismans, artifacts, pellets, and formations. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment, and then honestly replied, "I'm more proficient in refining artifacts." To be more precise, she had learned about formations, artifacts, and talismans before. She was just more confident in refining artifacts. When her words fell, a hint of something flashed past the sect master's face. "Humph." A cold snort sounded from above. Sovereign Xian Su glanced at her with a scornful look. "Silly little girl, you actually dare to talk about refining artifacts." Zhu Yao was startled. She did not understand why this person would suddenly start mocking her. The sect master said with an awkward look, "Junior Martial Sister Zhu, can you consider something else? Refining artifacts. Let her speak." Xian Su, however, interrupted the sect master's words and looked at Zhu Yao with a cold expression. "I do want to see just what rank an artificer you, a mere Azoth core practitioner, is?" Although he had asked with sincerity, Zhu Yao still frowned and pondered for a moment. 7th rank, I guess. In reality, she was at the 10th rank. However, with her current Azoth core cultivation, she could at most refine a 7th rank artifact. When these words fell, everyone present took in a deep breath. Impossible, Yiling suddenly exclaimed, and glared at her with a furious expression, as though she had said something unforgivable. My master is only a 6th rank artificer. How can you possibly be a 7th rank artificer? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes. So you're blaming me now? Yiling was speechless. Fine, let me see just how you're going to refine a 7th rank artifact. Xiansu's face darkened as well. Being slapped in the face by an Azoth core in public, even if he had cultivated for many years, he still could not swallow this anger. If you're really able to refine a 7th rank artifact, then I will hand over this chamber master position to you. What chamber master position? Senior Martial Ant, please calm your anger. The sect master immediately came out to smooth things over, and secretly signaled Zhu Yao with his eyes. Senior Martial Uncle Xiansu is naturally the most proficient in the art of artifact refinement, and for the past few hundred years, the sword chamber has always been managed by Senior Martial Uncle. Junior Martial Sister Zhu, with your current cultivation, although you're qualified to be a chamber master, it's still better for Senior Martial Uncle to continue managing this sword chamber. Why don't you choose something else? The hell. So it wasn't as simple as just being promoted to a nominal elder. The sect master was giving her actual authority. A chamber master was equivalent to a mountain lord in ancient hill sect in the past, right? Say so earlier. I don't want it. Zhu Yao shook her head like a rattle drum. Seeing that Xiansu was about to flare up again, she explained. What I'm saying is, I don't want to be a chamber master. It doesn't matter if it's a sword chamber or a pellet chamber. I just want to quietly be a beautiful young lady. Quietly cultivate. Thank you, sect master, for your good intentions. No need to say any more. However, Xiansu was unwilling to let it go, as he looked at her with disdain, as though he basically did not believe that she could refine a 7th-ranked mystic artifact. I'm a man of my words. Within 100 years, as long as you can refine a 7th-ranked mystic artifact, I will give up my position as a chamber master anytime. Actually, there's no need for that long. 3 days would do. Since Xiansu had said these words, the sect master did not have much else to say, and had no choice but to change the topic. Junior Martial Sister Zhu, I heard that an anomaly occurred at the location of your mission. An ancient ruin suddenly appeared, rose into the sky, and many strange formations appeared? It's here. She knew he was going to ask this. This matter has already attracted the attention of the various sects and clans. After many investigations, they were still unable to find the entrance. It seems like there's definitely a mystical treasure inside. The sect master swept his eyes across the various people who went on the mission back then, and probed. Among the few disciples who went on the mission, only you once ventured deep underground. I wonder if you know a thing or two about the situation inside. I don't know either. She couldn't possibly say that her own master lived inside, right? But when we entered, there weren't any so-called special formations in the surroundings. After we left, that formation only appeared. It seems like someone had placed it down. As for whether or not there are mystical treasures inside, I don't know either. However, if we were to recklessly barge in and anger the supreme practitioner who placed down the formation, she intentionally did not finish her sentence. The expressions of the people in the hall, however, changed, as they began to ponder deeply about her words. It was said that no one had ever seen the formations surrounding the ruin before, and they were extremely powerful. If there really was a supreme practitioner inside, he would at the very least be a nascent soul practitioner. Angering a nascent soul practitioner was really not a wise move. It seemed like the matter of probing the place had to be temporarily postponed. The sect master temporarily calmed down, and understood that he would not be able to get any other information from Zhu Yao. Hence, he did not make things difficult for her. He directly let her go. Zhu Yao, who had accidentally pulled Xiansu's hatred once again, quickly returned, and even pulled Yuying away. Compared to Xiansu, Yu Ying's master, Sovereign Xianyin, was much easier to talk to, as she let them go without saying a single word. The reason why she brought Yuing along was because she suddenly recalled that Yiling's Mary Sue cheat was always successful, yet it seemed to be completely ineffective against Yuing. Even when she took the initiative to express goodwill to him, Yuing had never given her any face. Chapter 211. Sesame, how is it? The moment they entered the house, Zhu Yao immediately began to inspect the results of the experiment. Sesame suddenly leapt up, and with a loud roar, pounced towards her back. I can't hold it in any longer. I want to bite him. I really want to bite him. It opened its mouth and bit towards Yuing. Sesame. Zhu Yao grabbed onto its tail and pulled it back. What's wrong with you? Sesame was stunned for a moment, and then bared its teeth at Yuing. A moment later, it said, I don't know. I just want to bite him. Stop fooling around, he's Yuing. Zhu Yao frowned. Sesame was startled. After pondering for a moment, it said, Yuing? That brat from back then? Why is he here? So it didn't recognize Yuing. It's a long story. I will tell you about it in the future. Zhu Yao placed Sesame on the table, separating the two of them. Hurry and tell me. Did you discover anything on Yiling's body? No. Sesame honestly replied. There's nothing on her body. Even that familiar feeling I had when I first saw her is gone. How was that possible? Could it be that the Mary Sue cheat could only be effective on the same person once? But earlier in the Great Hall, the other men were clearly looking at Yiling with such deep emotions in their eyes. Yuing, what about you? Zhu Yao turned to look at him. Do you feel that there's something wrong with Yiling's body? Yuing tilted his head, not understanding what she meant. Zhu Yao could only say, I mean, when you saw her, did your heartbeat speed up, or did you develop feelings like liking her? Yuing only likes Big Sis Yao. Yuing smiled very obediently. I'm fine as long as I have Big Sis Yao. Alright, it seemed like Yuing was completely immune. Just what in the world was going on? Or did she make a mistake somewhere? Just when there was a little progress, it was suddenly cut off again. Mistress. Sesame tugged onto the corner of her clothes and said eagerly, Let me bite him once, all right? Just once. That's enough. Is this the time to play with this? Big Sis Yao. Yuing tugged onto her as well, feeling wronged. It hurts. What the hell does it hurt? It's not even done biting yet, right? Zhu Yao immediately kicked the two of them out. She needed to think calmly in a world without clowns. She kept having the feeling that she seemed to have missed out on something. If there was anything different between the 2 times Sesame met Yiling, the only difference would be, the first time was in human form, while the other time was in beast form. Could it be that the Mary Sue halo only works on humanoid monsters? Sesame said that the Mary Sue's halo was similar to a dragon's might. Thinking about it carefully, back then when she was wearing the dragon armor, those beasties didn't submit to her based on her original form either. Wait, she's not a dragon now, but she's almost there, right? Didn't that rice fire beast still like to follow her? Could it be that there was something different about her new avatar? Zhu Yao immediately materialized a human-sized water mirror and carefully inspected her current avatar. Suddenly, a young lady of 18 or 19 years of age in a white dress appeared. That was normal. There were no special characters on his face, and his hair was black and shiny. There was even a fuck. What the hell is that drop-down arrow that suddenly appeared above my head? Why did such a thing suddenly appear on his avatar? Zhu Yao waved her hand, yet it simply passed through the drop-down arrow. It seemed like this was the same as the word bug, and only she could see it. Gritting her teeth, she could not help but tap on that drop-down arrow. Like a sliding screen, a row of words appeared on top of her head. World favorable impression value. Activated, deactivated. Why did something like this appear, hey? And what the hell is world favorable impression value? This is an online game, right? This is definitely an online game, right? She suddenly recalled the final words of Realm Spirit before her resurrection. He seemed to have said that he was going to gift her an achievement. It couldn't be this, right? She suddenly had a premonition that she was being cheated. After hesitating for a few times, she finally tapped on the activate button with trembling hands. Zhu Yao held her breath and waited for 3 seconds. Nothing happened. Could it be that this was really just a simple achievement, and completely useless? Just like the Lifetime Achievement Award, the kind that was displayed for her to feel good? Just as Zhu Yao was puzzled, suddenly, with a paw sound, the room door was kicked open. Sesame, who had transformed into a human, charged in like a rocket. He hugged onto her leg, and said with a deep and infatuated tone, "Mistress, I just realized how otherworldly you are." She kicked onto its face. Scram. What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Don't use those 4 words to describe me, hey. Sesame immediately crawled back, and continued to hug onto her leg. Mistress, this kick of yours is also so otherworldly. Scram. Mistress, your curses are also so otherworldly. Do you believe that I won't smack you? Come, mistress. Sesame actually shamelessly laid on the ground. There's no need to pity me, use more strength. Zhu Yao, that was Sesame crazy? Though it was very shameless in the past as well, it wasn't shameless to this extent, right? Wake up, hey. You're very scary like this, alright? Before she could ponder over Sesame's abnormality, the cries of cranes and the cries of various animals suddenly sounded from outside the house. She went out to take a look, only to see a dense mass of birds flying in the sky, and there were all sorts of them. The forest in front of her was suddenly filled with a cloud of dust. Various small animals were currently running in her direction, and even the plants in her courtyard were instantly excited, as they began to chatter noisily. Oh, I suddenly like her a lot. What should I do? Though I liked her in the past as well, I like her even more now. Me too. I really want her to touch my leaves. I really want her to blossom a flower. I really want her to bear a fruit. I really want to bear a small tree. Zhu Yao. That in an instant, the trees in her house blossomed, and the trees bore fruits. Several new saplings even sprouted out, as though they were suddenly injected with hormones. Zhu Yao was dumbfounded from watching this. Just as the scene was about to go out of control, Zhu Yao reacted quickly, and immediately tapped on the close button on top of her head. Only then did all of the abnormalities come to a stop. A large number of birds circled in the air, before flying away. The small animals also dispersed, except for the plants in her courtyard that were in a state of chaos, and Sesame, which was still hugging onto her leg without letting go. Zhu Yao instantly felt a little headache. She finally understood what this achievement was. The so-called world favorable impression. It really meant that the entire world had a favorable impression of her. Hey! Though this cheat was huge, once this achievement was activated, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. What use was there? And this thing seemed to be useless against humans, right? And that lump on my leg, are you done hugging it? Do you believe that I won't kick you? She immediately cast a water-type mystic art, drenching a certain beast's heart. Sesame shuddered, and stood up. It looked at her with a wronged look. Mistress, how can you treat this beastie like this? What happened to you earlier? Earlier. Sesame was startled, and then it once again wanted to hug onto her leg. This beastie wants to bear mistress children. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Is what beastie said true? Sesame weakly crossed its fingers. This beastie really likes mistress. I like mistress the most. Just like when you saw Yiling. Mama's egg, realm spirit couldn't have given her a Mary Sue cheat as well, right? Sesame shook its head. It's not the same. Of course it's not the same. The feeling mistress gave me earlier. It was startled for a moment. Suddenly, its entire body trembled, and it slowly widened its eyes. With a slightly dazed tone it said, "It's very intimate, very natural, yet it carries an indescribable majesty. It's like the heavenly Tao." Yiling's Mary Sue cheat had yet to be dealt with, while Zhu Yao herself had sunk into a strange cheat. She really wanted to ask Realm Spirit just why he gave her this achievement. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. In the past, she was scammed so badly by him. The things he gave her definitely wouldn't be anything good. Speaking of this, she once again recalled that side mission. That God's artifact bug had become her master's life artifact. Then, her side mission could be considered completed, right? Then, filled with anticipation, she reached out her paw to touch her own chest, only to touch a familiar flat plane. The hell? What happened to the promise of permanently increasing her cup size after completing it? Realm spirit, come out. Ting. The scene of fireworks scattering suddenly appeared in front of her eyes, and a familiar conversation window floated in front of her. Side mission 1 complete. Target reward distribution data transfer. 10, 20, 30. Oh, roar, was the award ceremony going to start? Zhu Yao instantly became excited. Holding onto her chest with both hands, she stared intensely at the constantly increasing numbers, and silently chanted in her heart. Big, big, big. The numbers in front of her eyes grew faster and faster. 80, 90, finally. 100. Zhu Yao instantly held her breath, and used all of her mind to feel the changes in front of her chest. The conversation window flashed, and suddenly emitted out a white light. It began to twist and spin, forming a white thing that looked like a teleportation hole. And then, something fell out with a splat. Zhu Yao reflexively reached out her hand to catch it. Lifting it up, she saw a small pink piece of cloth with a double arc design appearing in front of her. There was even a small card hanging on the cloth, and on it were written in simplified Chinese, "A city's pretty underwear. Size 70 a Zhu Yao." That she felt as though she had received the evil intentions of the entire world. Flips table. This old lady wants a cup. Why the hell did you give me a cup? And it's even an A cup. You think you can pass the award just by changing the order of the words? You're bullying me because my language skills aren't good, right? This old lady wants to go on strike. I'm determined to go on strike. Realm spirit, just you wait and see. Zhu Yao was listless for the next few days. Suddenly, she felt that the entire world had turned dark about her small chest. What Mary Sue? What bug? Ho ho. What does that have to do with me? I will never love again. She was depressed for a few days, until Lin Xiang suddenly came knocking on her door. She said that the news of the ruins containing treasures had spread far and wide. At this moment, various sects and clans suddenly gathered at that forest back then, and wanted to forcefully attack it. And Blue Parasol sect finally could not sit still, and wanted to take a share of the action. When Zhu Yao heard this, she was instantly enraged. Chapter 212. When Zhu Yao rushed to that forest, there were already quite a few people from the various sects gathered there. In the beginning, she was a little worried that with so many people surrounding this place, it would bring trouble to her master. However, only when she arrived did she realize that she was thinking too much. Forget about charging in. These people couldn't even approach that lightning formation. As long as they were to approach it, the heavenly lightning would indiscriminately turn them into charcoal. Hence, the large group of people could only look at that majestic palace floating in the sky from afar. Zhu Yao and Lin Xiang greeted the sect master, and then silently stood in Blue Parasol sect's camp. Sect Master Lin, among the various sects, Blue Parasol sect has the most disciples. A middle-aged man walked out, and said to the sect master of Blue Parasol sect, "This place was discovered by a disciple of Blue Parasol sect as well. Do you know the way to enter?" Lin Yu had a troubled look as well. This ruin appeared within Blue Parasol sect's territory in the first place, and the various sects barged in to snatch the treasure without notifying him was already very disgusting. Now that he didn't have the ability to enter, and wanted Blue Parasol sect to stand out, he was very dissatisfied with the various sections. Sect Master Wu must be joking. He politely smiled. "If we knew the way to enter, why would we wait until now? Though your Dianling sect had already investigated this place 2 days ago, I believe you should be more familiar with this place." Dianling sect's sect master met with a soft rebuff, and knew that the other party couldn't break through this sword formation as well, and seemed to be afraid of him. Hence, he no longer encouraged Blue Parasol sect to be the vanguard. Then they began to discuss other countermeasures. However, the more sects there were, the more opinions there would be. Whenever a suggestion was made, there would definitely be objections. The various sects discussed and discussed, but they couldn't come to a conclusion. Instead, the more they argued, the more intense they became. Seeing that they weren't united, Zhu Yao felt relieved. It seemed like it was a joke for these people to want to break through her master's 5 elemental 9 rotations, heavenly lightning formation. She was really worried for nothing. How long are they going to quarrel for? They are all yawning. Big Sister Yao. Ying suddenly appeared behind her. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. Why are you here as well? I came with Master, he replied. Zhu Yao sized up her surroundings. Heh, only then did she realize that Blue Parasol sect was really generous this time. The only 3 nascent soul stage practitioners were all here. It seemed like they were really determined to get their hands on this place. Big Sis Yao, come here. Ying pulled Zhu Yao and walked a few steps back, away from the crowd. Suddenly, he reached out his hand to hold onto her waist, leapt up, and landed on top of a tree branch. Sit here, we can see it more clearly. He pointed to the crowd of people from various sects who were arguing endlessly below. The terrain here was high, and with a single glance he could see everyone. It was indeed a good place. Zhu Yao gave him a thumbs up. Well done. Ying had a gentle smile on his face. He turned around and handed her a bag of snacks. Do you want to eat something? The service is so good. Zhu Yao's eyes instantly shone, as she satisfyingly stroked Ying's head. Good son. When he opened the bag and looked inside, he was stunned. It was filled with nothing but a bag full of golden melon seeds. They were of the same size and were plump, emitting a familiar fragrance. Zhu Yao's hand trembled. She fiercely raised her head and unconsciously called out, Xiaobai. Big sister, what's wrong? Ying was stunned and asked with a puzzled look, Who is Xiaobai? No. Nothing. Zhu Yao suppressed the shock in the depths of her heart and casually asked, Why did you suddenly think of bringing me this? On the way here, I passed by a mortal's market. I saw that they were selling this by the roadside, so I casually bought it. A hint of disappointment surfaced on Ying's face. Why? Big Sister Yao doesn't like it? Zhu Yao hurriedly shook her head. No, I like it. I like it a lot. So it was just a coincidence? Right, Ying was Ying. How could he possibly recall the matters of his past life? Big Sister Yao is worried about Ying suddenly asked. Zhu Yao nodded. She did not hide the fact that Ying had recovered his cultivation from him. Big Sister Yao, don't worry. Just based on them. He swept his gaze below, and his eyes slightly narrowed. He looked as though he was focused, and yet, as though he was looking down on everything. Leaning close to Zhu Yao's ears, he softly said, No one has been able to break that sword formation yet. Of course, she knew that her master's formation wasn't simple, but it was better to be safe than sorry. Since a bug like Mary Sue could exist in this world, who knew if something that could instantly break a sword formation would appear? All right, let's do it this way. Someone suddenly said loudly, as though they had finally come up with a concrete solution. Each of them turned around and walked back to their own camps. The sect master of Blue Parasol sect, Lin Yu, walked back as well. However, he was walking towards the 3 nascent soul stage sovereigns. He respectfully bowed, and then began to talk about the results of the discussion earlier. Zhu Yao did not know what they were talking about. She only heard the sect master say, I hope that the 3 sovereigns will do their best to assist us. The expressions of the 3 sovereigns changed, as though they were hesitating about something. There were even hints of dissatisfaction in between their brows. But in the end, Xian Su was the first to nod, and the other sovereign agreed as well. Though the only female sovereign, Xian Yin, was a little hesitant. She did not know if it was her imagination. But Zhu Yao felt that Xian Yin seemed to be looking in their direction, and her eyes seemed to be carrying a hint of seeking for help. Zhu Yao suddenly had a strange feeling. What was she looking at? Was it Ying? Zhu Yao could not help but glance at Ying. However, he was still peeling melon seeds for her with a gentle smile, and did not even lift his eyelids. She must be imagining things. Ying was her disciple, and it had always been disciples who listened to their masters. When had there ever been a master who sought his disciples' opinion? In the next moment, the 3 sovereigns had already flown up on their swords and headed towards the lightning formation. At the same time, people from the various sects and clans flew up one after another, and after counting, there were 8 of them. Furthermore, she was completely unable to see through anyone's cultivation level, which proved that their cultivation level was above hers. In other words, their cultivation levels were above hers. The 8 of them, each in a direction, stopped in the surroundings of the ruins, and each of them made a posture of casting their arts. Only then did Zhu Yao realize what they were going to do, and she immediately stood up. The hell? These people are going to break the formation together? Yu Ying, however, pulled her back and said with a smile, "Big sis Yao, it's fine." Zhu Yao glanced at the 8 of them, and then looked at Yu Ying. Only then did she hold herself back from rushing forward to stop them. The 8 of them had already begun to cast their arts. 8 dazzling beams of light shot out towards the outside of the formation at the same time. The surroundings of the ruins emitted out a dazzling white light, so blinding that one could not open their eyes. A series of loud rumbling noises continuously resounded in their ears, and the pressure that had been enveloping the air the entire time suddenly disappeared. Even the gigantic lightning swords that were circling the surroundings of the ruins suddenly stopped moving as well. Success! Xiansu's face was filled with joy, and his eyes instantly shone. The other 7 people's faces were filled with joy as well. Just as they were about to fly their swords in, that gigantic lightning sword, as though it had suddenly activated something, emitted a light, which was even brighter than the white light from before. An overwhelming pressure instantly pressed down on the 8 of them. Not good. Hurry and leave. Xiansu's expression changed as he turned to flee. However, it was already too late. 8 gigantic swords suddenly flew out from the formation, and in an instant, they turned into 8 streaks of lightning. Carrying an irresistible force, they immediately slashed towards the various people. Before they could even react, they were instantly struck onto the ground by those heavenly lightning bolts. Their dantian trembled, and their divine sense became unstable. Even their nascent souls were feeling a dull pain, and there were even people who had directly dropped a small realm. The nascent soul experts who were initially high and mighty were currently collectively lying on the ground, unable to move. A faint smell of roasted meat floated in the air. With such a collective collapse, forget about the disciples, even the various sect masters were unable to react in time. No one had expected that the small group of nascent soul experts who represented the strongest strength in this world would be destroyed so easily. How is this possible? Someone rubbed his eyes in disbelief. However, the truth was not just that. Before the crowd could even react, a terrifying pressure was already coming towards them. The scene, which was still bustling earlier, was instantly like an onion being poured onto the ground, as though they were suddenly pressed down by something. Every single one of them laid on the ground, unable to move. There were even some low-level disciples whose foundations were unstable, as they instantly puked out blood and fainted. Other than Zhu Yao and Yu Ying, who were still on the tree, that terrifying pressure seemed to have intentionally bypassed the 2 of them, and did not affect them in the slightest. Although she understood that her master was a little protective, wouldn't this be a little too obvious? Why don't she just follow his advice? Aya! Zhu Yao softly cried out, as she fell down and hugged onto the tree trunk. Turning her head to look at Yu Ying, who was still standing upright, she then conveniently pulled him down as well. Low profile, understand? A cold voice transmission came from the sky. The voice wasn't loud, but it was clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. Today's matter is only a small punishment. If you do it again, you will be punished without mercy. That voice contained spiritual energy, and with every word spoken, everyone present could not help but puke out a mouthful of blood. When he finished speaking, more than half of the disciples on the ground had already fainted. Such terrifying strength was really unheard of. The sect master of Blue Parasol sect was even sweating profusely. Suddenly recalling Zhu Yao's words, he felt a little afraid. She said that the person who was able to lay down such a formation was definitely a supreme expert. In the beginning he did not believe it, but now he had no choice but to believe it. He never thought that there was actually a cultivation level higher than nascent soul in this world. And it was even so terrifyingly high. For a moment his intestines turned green from regret. Among the people who came this time, Blue Parasol sect had the most. If they really angered the other party, their sect could be considered to be destroyed. Fortunately, from the meaning behind his words, This supreme expert did not plan to pursue the matter of them offending him. However, that pressure was still not retracted. Could it be that there was still a follow-up? As expected, a fiery red figure suddenly flew out from the ruins. A man dressed in black robes appeared in front of everyone. The pressure on everyone's body instantly disappeared. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment, as she fiercely widened her eyes. This person? Who is he? Just as everyone was guessing if this person was that supreme expert, he said, Master has ordered that a calamity is about to descend upon this world. Since all of you have found this place, it can be considered as fate. The man with the black robe swept a glance at the crowd. He has specially bestowed a mystic artifact to borrow this world to tide over this crisis. Mystic artifact? Everyone's eyes shone. Who would have thought that the situation would take such a turn? They crawled up one after another. In the first place, they were here to search for treasures. They never expected that they would kick a metal plate. And instead, a treasure unexpectedly fell from the metal plate. Fellow Taoist. Lin Yu bowed towards the other party, and politely said, I wonder which sovereign your esteemed master is? What is the name of this palace? The man raised his head and said with an air of superiority, My master is Jade Forest Mountain Sovereign Yu Yan. Zhu Yao. That she finally believed that this person was sent by her master. But if you want to act cool, at least change your name. Hey, is it really alright to directly use Jade Forest Mountain? Jade Forest Mountain is a mountain, and this is clearly a palace. Only a fool would believe you, right? I see, Lin Yu said with a look of understanding. I have been punished previously. I hope your esteemed master can forgive me. The hell, there's actually someone who believes me. Earlier, fellow Taoist, you said that your esteemed master bestowed a mystic artifact, is that? Finally, he asked the main question. And in an instant, everyone's eyes turned towards him. Just choose a fated person, and follow me into the palace to receive it. The man said. Lin Yu was overjoyed, and just as he was about to recommend himself. Then this humble one. I'll choose her then. The man looked around, and when he saw Zhu Yao on the tree, his eyes instantly shone, and he walked over with large strides. Standing under the tree, he raised his hand towards her. As though he had suddenly changed his style, his pair of eyes sparkled as he looked at her. I'll choose you then. Follow me into the palace. Meowed at the corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. She finally recognized who this man in front of her was. This habit of wanting to extend its claws at her the moment they met. Wasn't it that rise fire beast? Since when did it cultivate into a human form? And what the hell was that meow earlier? What happened to that noble and cool demeanor earlier? Don't drool while looking at me, hey. Enter the palace, enter the palace. The rise fire beast raised its two hands towards her, and in her eyes, it was as though she could see that four-legged bestial beast raising its two little hooves towards her, sparkling and sparkling, begging to hold its claws. The Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Lin Yu, however, was signaling her with his eyes at the side, hoping that she would hurry and agree. Zhu Yao sighed. For a moment, she understood that her master definitely had something to tell her. So he found an excuse to send the rise fire beast out to look for her. Hence, she immediately jumped down from the tree. I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist to lead the way. The rise fire beast looked a little disappointed at its two empty claws. Its little lips flattened, and it looked as though it was about to cry. However, it still obediently turned around, turning into a ray of light and flew towards the ruins. Zhu Yao flew on her sword and followed behind. The gigantic swords surrounding the ruins automatically separated, opening up a path. When the rise fire beast returned to the ruins, it once again turned back into that gigantic bestial beast, and brought her to a teleportation formation. That pair of bell-like bestial eyes finally could not hold it in any longer, as large amounts of heart-wrenching tears flowed out, as though it had suffered a huge grievance. The familiar tender voice once again sounded. She doesn't like me. She doesn't hold my claws. She doesn't hold my claws. She doesn't hold my claws. Ooh, Zhu Yao's expression darkened and she sighed. Then, she stepped forward and hugged its four hooves one by one. Only then did she walk into the teleportation formation. The scene changed, and she once again arrived at that mustard seed dimensional space. A figure dressed in snow-white robes appeared in front of her. With a light smile, he raised both of his hands towards her. Chapter 213. When did Master become as abnormal as the Rise Fire Beast? However, even if it's abnormal, I still like it. Master. Zhu Yao pounced forward and hugged the person in front of her. As expected, her master was still the best when it came to taking the initiative to ask for hugs. Yu Yan's figure stiffened. Raising his hand, he plucked a leaf off her head. Was his stupid disciple's illness acting up again? He sighed, but he didn't push her away. Instead, he hugged her tightly. He suddenly felt that it was quite comfortable to be together like this, so he didn't want to let go. Master, is something the matter? Zhu Yao nudged against him. Yes. Yu Yan stroked her hair and lightly said, Your master has sensed a change in the spiritual energy at the northern border of this continent. It is faintly showing signs of gathering, and in less than 10 days, there will be great chaos. Zhu Yao was startled. She fiercely raised her head and took a step back. Extreme north? Then what are they gathering? Yu Yan's chest became empty, and he unhappily frowned. Glancing back and forth at the distance between the two of them, he took the opportunity to pull his disciple back. The spiritual energy over there is mixed, and it's carrying a ferocious aura. It should be a demonic beast. Demonic beast, you mean? Yu Yao. The beast wave is here. Beast tide. It couldn't be that fast, right? Wasn't the beast tide supposed to happen once every 100 years? She clearly remembered that in the plot, the next beast tide would be 50 years later. It was also because of that time that the Beast Lord was accidentally injured and was saved by Mary Sue. Then he started the main storyline of courting death and destroying the world. Why was it brought forward so much for no reason? With the invasion of the beast wave, the various clans and sects will definitely attack in full force. He slowly said. Yu Yao, are you prepared? Could she say that she hadn't thought about this at all? Yu Yan sighed, as though he had already guessed it. Though you've already formed your Azoth core, it's still not safe under the beast wave. With a wave of his hand, a familiar red fan appeared in his hand. I've refined this weapon for you over the past few days. This is... Zhu Yao's eyes shone. Back then at Jade Forest Mountain, you were most proficient in this weapon. So I prepared this for you. Master. He was indeed one of the top 10 masters that could move the world. He had even thought of this for her. The weapon of this fan was exactly the same as the first weapon that her master had given her. It was just that back then, it was only a primary grade magic tool, while this one was a 6th grade magic tool. Looking at the faint strands of lightning circulating around the ribs of the fan, it seemed to be of the lightning attribute. It was touching. She had been in this world for so many days, but even her flying sword was the same as her sex, and it was already badly damaged. Now he finally had his own weapon. Thank you, Master. Yu Yan nodded. Then, as though he was performing a magic trick, he took out another storage pouch and began to take out items one by one. This is a flying sword. There's a defensive technique engraved on it. It can withstand a full-powered strike from a soul formation cultivator. She really needed transportation. She took it. This is a rank 7 talisman array. If you are trapped, you can use this. There's actually an array talisman. This is a purple extreme heavenly thunder talisman. I sealed an ascension tribulation lightning within it. Talisman? This doesn't seem to be useful, right? There are also a few mystic robes. Didn't you like your master's clothes back then? I made a similar one. No, I just want to strip you. There are also a few others. You can change into them. Why did she feel as though she was on a vacation? There are also some snacks. If you're tired from killing demonic beasts, you can try them. Don't eat medicinal pellets. It's not good for your cultivation. Master, I'm going to kill demonic beasts, not for a spring outing, hey. Yao. Do you still have sunflower water? If you do, your master still has to prepare. Menstruation belt. I'll be heading back first. Goodbye. Zhu Yao finally understood how her master's life skills were lit up. Because of loneliness. She had only left for a few days, yet he had already prepared such a huge pile of items. In order to prevent him from taking out any more immoral things, Zhu Yao wisely slipped away. The beast wave appearing in advance was a huge matter. Zhu Yao immediately told this news to the various clans and sects, and when they heard the news, everyone's expressions sank a little. The beast wave has always appeared once every 100 years. Why would it appear in advance for no reason? Xian Su was the first to raise a question, and his tone carried a faint hint of doubt. Good question. She wanted to know as well. It was personally said by the sovereign inside. I don't know the exact reason either. If you're doubtful, you can ask him yourself. Zhu Yao once again blocked his words. As expected, Xian Su's expression instantly darkened. Evidently, he recalled the awkward scene where he was unable to even enter the formation earlier. He had always found Zhu Yao to be an eyesore. Initially, he had asked this question just to make things difficult for her. He never expected that he would be stumped instead. The sovereign actually had such a prophecy. It seems to be true. Sect Master Lin Yu came out to smooth things over, and looked towards Zhu Yao. Junior Martial Sister Zhu, earlier, the sovereign said that he would bestow a mystic artifact. I wonder. When he asked this question, the others instantly perked up their ears, as they looked at her with sparkling eyes. Zhu Yao did not hide anything either. Opening her storage pouch, with a wave of her hand, hundreds of various mystic artifacts instantly flew out. Inside there were all sorts of mystic artifacts from the 3rd to the 7th rank. Not only that, the most important thing was, they were actually all top-grade mystic artifacts. Everyone's eyes widened. It wasn't hard to refine a mystic artifact below the 5th rank, and even 3rd-rate sects and above had people who could refine them. However, top-grade mystic artifacts were not things that could be refined by ordinary people. Even a 7th-rank artificer might not be able to refine a single top-grade artifact after refining it for thousands of times. But here there were hundreds of them. There were already practitioners who had begun to pinch their own faces, to see if they were dreaming. The sovereign said that these weapons have a certain level of spirituality, and will choose the most suitable person to use them on their own. Hence, those who are fated will obtain them. Zhu Yao explained. As expected, not even a moment later, those hundreds of weapons began to dance in the air on their own. After circling a few rounds, they flew in front of the various people, and the people who obtained them all had faces of pleasant surprise. The others could only sigh at their bad luck, as they were not chosen by the mystic artifacts. Zhu Yao suddenly felt the thrill of being a tycoon throwing money on the streets. You can be this willful when you're rich. Actually, these weapons were not prepared by her master. She had only returned to Blue Parasol sect for a month, and no matter how incredible her master was, it was impossible for him to refine so many weapons in a month. These were all mystic artifacts that existed in the ruins in the first place. She simply held Apui, borrowed flowers to present the Buddha. And what about them automatically choosing their owners was just something she made up. She simply laid down a formation, causing the swords to randomly fly around, and then land on them. Otherwise, with the nature of the various sects, they would most probably start fighting over these mystic artifacts again. How good is this? There's no need to rush or fight over them. Zhu Yao looked at her surroundings in satisfaction, only to see a 4th-ranked red ribbon flying towards the right, and the person standing there was Mary Su. Yiling's face was filled with pleasant surprise, and her eyes were even shining. Just as she was about to reach out her hand to receive it, Zhu Yao's hand moved. With a flick of Zhu Yao's hand, that red ribbon made a circle, and landed on Lin Xiang's hand. Yiling's face instantly darkened, and that pure and kind face of hers could no longer be maintained. Amen, that's right, she's just that petty. Big Sis Yao, where's mine? A voice transmission suddenly sounded in the depths of her heart. Ying was standing behind her, smiling with a gentle expression, as though he had seen through everything. Zhu Yao turned around, and slapped a packet of spicy gluten into his hands. Be good. Junior Martial Sister Zhu. Lin Yu received a 6th-ranked supreme-grade mystic artifact as well, and kept it with a joyous expression. He asked, I wonder what cultivation level the sovereign who bestowed the mystic artifact upon us is at. Demigod. To be more precise, he was a high deity. Demigod? Lin Yu was startled for a moment. What's a demigod? The great realm after nascent soul is demigod. Gasps could be heard from the crowd, as though they were unable to react. Although everyone had faintly guessed that the sovereign's cultivation level was definitely above nascent soul, they did not expect that he was actually an entire realm higher. In this world where the highest cultivation level was only at nascent soul, the crowd was momentarily stunned by this news. Could it be that ascending to become a deity was possible, and not just a legend? The various sects and clans dividing the spoils, dividing the mystic artifacts, ended harmoniously just like that. Blue Parasol sect became the biggest winner in the end, because the number of people who went was the most. Probably because of that nonsense, she said. Those who are fated will obtain it. It made everyone give up on their thoughts of fighting over it. After the division, not only did everyone not fight, they even helped each other and discussed the arrangements for the beast wave. This was the first time Zhu Yao faced the so-called beast wave directly. She did not know if it was because of the butterfly effect, but the storyline had already seriously deviated from its original trajectory. Although the number of people in Mary Sue's harem did not decrease, the original beast wave had been brought forward by 50 years. Initially, Yiling had met the Beast Lord after she built her foundation. And then, due to the two of them engaging in Erpair's cultivation, she directly formed her Azoth core. From then on, she walked onto the peak of her life. However, currently, Yiling was still an Essence Stage disciple. No matter how ferocious the beast wave was, the various sects would not send an Essence Stage disciple to stop it. When she thought of this, she suddenly felt as though she had picked up a bargain. However, 5 days later, a piece of news came, allowing Zhu Yao to truly experience the power of the storyline. Yiling had built her foundation. An early-stage Essence Stage disciple had suddenly built her foundation in 5 days. This news came too quickly. It was simply unbelievable. The explanation given by the officials was, she had received an inspiration when she was in the ruins that day, and after she returned, she gained an epiphany. Hence, she immediately built her foundation. Zhu Yao had a premonition that this trip would never be simple again. 8 days later, news came from the north. The demonic beasts had already begun to gather, and were about to invade. Blue Parasol sect gathered all of their foundation and above disciples. Other than the sect master who stayed behind, all of the Azoth core disciples went, and the one leading the group was Sovereign Xiansu. When Zhu Yao pulled Yuing to gather, Xiansu had already led everyone to the plaza in front of the hall to prepare. She did not know if it was her imagination, but she felt that Xiansu's mood today was especially good. Even that dead-looking face that was usually tensed up had softened quite a bit. When he saw her, he simply frowned, and then shifted his gaze away. He did not intentionally make things difficult for her. As expected, Yiling was here as well. However, she was not surrounded by a group of men like she usually was. Instead, she had her head lowered, and was following closely behind Xiansu. Xiansu loudly shouted, set off, and summoned his own weapon. However, he turned around and hugged Yiling's waist, and the two of them rode on the same sword. The two of them were master and disciple, so this was nothing much in the first place. However, Yiling's face was filled with embarrassment. Her 2 hands were placed in front of his chest, and she strangely struggled for a moment. However, it was to no avail, and instead, she moved even closer to Xiansu. Zhu Yao widened her eyes, and her heart skipped a beat. She suddenly thought of a possibility. These 2 people couldn't possibly have a thing going on, right? She glanced at Xiansu, whose face was flushed with success. Wasn't this progress a little too fast? She suddenly recalled a certain one that was trapped in the mustard seed dimensional space. So many years had passed, yet he was still pure. Scratch the wall. Master, you should learn from him. Big Sis Yao. Zhu Yao felt her mystic artifact becoming heavy. She did not know when, but Yu Ying's foot had already stepped onto her mystic artifact, and he looked at her with an expectant look. Can you bring me along? I don't have my own mystic artifact yet, and I don't have enough spiritual energy either, so I can't fly that far. Oh. Just as she was about to agree, suddenly, a white light flashed on the open fan, and in an instant, it shrunk by half, instantly flicking Yuing away. A row of words instantly appeared on the red surface of the fan. Devils and dogs are not allowed on this fan. Zhu Yao, ho master, you're so childish. In the end, Zhu Yao had no choice but to take out the flight mystic artifact that she prepared and pass it to Yuing. This one doesn't require much spiritual energy. I'm sorry, Yuing. I can't bring you along to act cool anymore, and bring you along to fly. Their group flew for 8 hours, before they finally arrived at their destination. However, it was not the location of the Beast Tide, but a town of practitioners. The various sects and clans had agreed to gather here, and when they arrived, there were already many practitioners there. The various sects and clans greeted each other, and after everyone had arrived, they then headed towards the location of the Beast Tide. As they got closer to their destination, Zhu Yao felt the air was getting heavier. She could feel the pressure coming from the front, and her emotions were a little chaotic. Sesame, can you sense the demonic beasts over there? Are there many? Zhu Yao inspected her divine sense. There are many. Sesame carried a hint of uncertainty. Zhu Yao frowned, and could not help but ask. Those demonic beasts can't be like the Rise Fire beast, and like to let people hold their claws, right? If that was really the case, forget about stopping the Beast Tide. She definitely wouldn't be able to do anything, all right? They won't. Phew. That's good. If Mistress were to release that kind of aura from back then, they would only want to give birth to monkeys for you. Mistress, can you promise me? Sesame suddenly said with a serious look. What? Let me give birth to your first monkey. Scram. Go find your otherworldly beauty. This lady here doesn't like monkeys. I've decided. I must seal the favorable impression points of that world forever. Mistress. You're so heartless, so unreasonable. Do you believe that I won't let you out and throw you in front of Yiling? No. Sesame let out a miserable cry. I don't want to like 2 legs. A long while later. Mistress. What now? I forgot to tell you earlier. I feel that the aura of the Beast Tide over there is very chaotic. It's very abnormal. Chapter 214. After truly arriving at the border, Zhu Yao finally understood the difference in this world. In front of them was a forest, yet it was split into 2. This side was filled with lush greenery, while the other side was withered. It was as though they were separated by something, forming 2 completely different worlds. From afar, she could already hear the loud crashing sounds, accompanied by the sounds that resounded through the clouds. On the other side of the forest, there were various demonic beasts that occupied half of the sky. They were currently crashing against the barrier at the center with all their might. That barrier was huge, as though it spanned across the entire heaven and earth. It formed a gigantic transparent sky, isolating all of the demonic beasts outside. Zhu Yao was a little shocked. She never expected that there would actually be such a huge formation in this world, one that could protect the entire cultivation world's barrier. Even her master couldn't possibly set down such a huge formation. The demonic beasts are about to break in. Everyone, hurry and guard the formation core. Someone shouted out. The various sects then dispersed in different directions according to their agreement. Zhu Yao followed the Blue Parasol sect disciples, and directly descended into the forest in front. In front of her was that transparent barrier. And in front of her, there was even a gigantic demonic beast that was currently crashing against the barrier with all its might. That was actually an 8th-ranked earth-shaking beast. The strength of an earth-type demonic beast was extremely great. Prepare for battle. Xian Su did not waste any time either, and immediately had everyone summon their weapons. With a stern expression, he looked at the other side. Zhu Yao was a little curious about that formation. This was the first time she had seen such a gigantic formation. And the mysterious thing was, even though she was standing so close to it, she did not feel the slightest bit of spiritual energy flow. It had to be known that the larger the formation, the greater the requirement for spiritual energy. For a formation like this that spanned across an entire large formation without being able to feel any spiritual energy, how much of a formation expert must one be to be able to do it? Though this formation was ingenious, under that earth-shaking beast's reckless attacks, it still faintly showed signs of breaking through. Ripples began to appear on the initially transparent barrier, and it even caved in a little. It was as though something was drilling into it. The hearts of the disciples present instantly tensed up, as they tightened their grip on the mystic artifacts in their hands. Finally, after a dozen or so collisions, that demonic beast broke through a line, and quickly escaped from the barrier. With a flash of light, a gigantic figure descended into the crowd. A gigantic figure descended into the crowd, its entire body shining with dazzling light. It raised its head to the sky and roared, its voice resounding through the clouds, causing people's hearts to tremble. Xian Su was the first to make a move. A huge ball of fire instantly enveloped the entire demonic beast. A spiritual sword slashed down directly towards it. The demonic beast's figure flashed and instantly appeared 10 feet away. The flowing light on its body also dimmed, revealing a huge black 7th-order demonic beast. Zhu Yao fiercely widened her eyes, and was a little unable to believe it. Sesame, do you see that? How did this happen? Earlier on, she had already projected everything that was happening outside to Sesame. This beast's rank dropped. Did you see what was going on? I don't know either. Sesame's face was filled with confusion as well. After a while he said, it might be because of that layer of flowing light on its body earlier. Flowing light? That layer of light only appeared when the demonic beast broke through the barrier. Could it be that formation? But what kind of formation could forcefully lower a demonic beast's rank? Zhu Yao turned to look, only to see that the barrier that was broken through by the demonic beast earlier had already returned to its original state, as though it was completely undamaged. This barrier could automatically repair itself? Before Zhu Yao could even think of the reason, that demonic beast had already pounced towards the crowd. Initially, she was standing a little further away, as she was afraid that her beast-attracting physique would cause some trouble. However, due to Xian Su's attack, that demonic beast might have sensed that it could not defeat him, hence, it immediately turned around and charged towards the area with the most people. They were all Foundation disciples, so how could they possibly block a 7th-ranked demonic beast? Everyone could only scatter on their flying swords. Zhu Yao grabbed onto Yuing, and flew up with the crowd as well. However, she did not know if it was because of bad luck, that demonic beast was actually still in hot pursuit, and was even pouncing towards her. The hell, this abominable beast-attracting physique. Zhu Yao summoned thousands of vines to wrap around that demonic beast, stopping its movements. The other disciples took this opportunity as well, and threw their mystic arts onto its body. However, demonic beasts with thick skin and flesh were basically not affected by these mystic arts. Instead, it was enraged by the crowd. With a wild roar, the ground began to collapse inch by inch, cracking apart as though there was an earthquake. Wood-type mystic arts relied on the earth in the first place, and now that it had lost the support of the earth, Zhu Yao's vines could no longer be maintained as well, and began to scatter. The demonic beast broke free, and as though it was filled with monstrous fury, it leapt straight towards her. Why was it her again, hey? The attack earlier, the others had a part in it as well, alright? She wanted to dodge, however, a pressure that was equivalent to an early-stage nascent soul practitioner came charging towards her. Zhu Yao's feet froze, and she instantly felt a suffocating aura. She fiercely widened her eyes and looked at the demonic beast that was approaching her. This was killing intent. A killing intent so dense that it could cause one's entire body to turn cold. This beast was different from the Rise Fire beast. It really wanted to kill her. Zhu Yao's expression sharpened. Summoning her own weapon, she unfolded her fan and waved it. In an instant, hundreds of wind blades carrying lightning bolts were formed, and they directly slashed towards that 7th-ranked demonic beast. With a series of rumbling sounds, that demonic beast instantly let out a miserable cry. Several charred wounds instantly appeared on its body, and it instantly fell from the sky. The pressure on Zhu Yao's body was released, and she brought Yuing along as she quickly flew away from that empty space. That demonic beast struggled, and it madly wanted to chase after her to attack. Suddenly, a gigantic spiritual sword fell straight down from the sky. In an instant, it pierced through the demonic beast, and the madness in the demonic beast's eyes slowly disappeared, until it lost its luster. Flying on his sword, Su Xian stopped in the air above the demonic beast. With a sunken expression, he glanced at the demonic beast. Seeing that it was no longer breathing, he then retracted his sword intent. "Mistress, this demonic beast is a little strange." Sesame suddenly spoke up. "Amen." Zhu Yao naturally noticed it as well. She kept having the feeling that this demonic beast seemed to be intentionally attacking her, as though it would not stop until it killed her. Yesterday, she was still a good girl who was loved by beasts. Why was it a complete reversal today? "You beasties are a little too fickle, aren't you?" Before she could figure it out, a commotion once again appeared on the barrier. This time outside the barrier, there were 4 to 5 demonic beasts charging at the same time. They were all demonic beasts ranging from 6th to 8th rank. As though they were summoned by something, they desperately attacked the barrier. Not even a moment later, several white flashes appeared, and several demonic beasts appeared in front of her. Just like the previous one, their ranks had all dropped, and some of them had even dropped by 2 ranks. The moment they landed, they began to attack the crowd in a frenzy. Zhu Yao faintly realized that the moment all of the demonic beasts landed, their first reaction was to attack her. So it wasn't her imagination. These beasties really seemed to have activated their aggro mode, and every single one of them wished they could take a bite out of her. The hell? What happened to the promised harmonious coexistence between humans and animals? Fortunately, there were many people here, so no one had noticed this anomaly yet. However, she could no longer bring anyone along. "Yuing, stay away from me." Zhu Yao turned around and instructed. Yuing was currently only at the foundation stage. Initially, she wanted to protect him, but looking at the current situation, it would instead be more dangerous for him to follow her. "Why?" His eyes sank. Looking as though he was about to cry, he pulled onto her sleeves. "Big sis Yao, it's not safe to follow me. Find a place to protect yourself." Zhu Yao stroked his head. "Don't easily make a move if you're not confident, understand?" After Zhu Yao finished instructing him, not caring if he agreed or not, she turned around and headed in the opposite direction. A 5th-ranked demonic beast instantly changed its direction and flew towards her. Yuing stood where he was without making a sound, and simply stared intently at the figure that was currently fighting with the demonic beast. His eyes instantly sank and slightly narrowed, as though boundless rage was being emitted out. The demonic beast that was still lively earlier suddenly tilted its body and suddenly fell from the sky. The surrounding disciples naturally did not let go of this opportunity, as they swarmed forward to kill the demonic beast. Everyone spent a whole hour before they finally cleared out the second wave of demonic beasts. However, even more demonic beasts appeared on the barrier. There's actually more. There were already disciples who were injured, and they began to discuss tiredly. "Why are there so many demonic beasts this time?" "That's right. Usually there wouldn't be 5 or 6 of them appearing at the same time. Even 7th-ranked demonic beasts have appeared. Weren't there only 5th-ranked ones in the past? I wonder what kind of demonic beast will appear next." "That's right. If only we could see the demonic beasts. It's good that we can see them." Zhu Yao was startled, as she looked at the few gigantic demonic beasts that were ramming against the barrier. It was clearly a transparent barrier, and the ones outside were all 7th-ranked demonic beasts as well. They couldn't see them? "Pay attention, the next wave of demonic beasts is coming," Su Xian loudly reminded. He stared at the barrier that was ringing nonstop, while protecting Yiling behind him. The crowd no longer chatted idly, as they began to fight with all their might. The following situation made Zhu Yao feel that things were even stranger. The number of demonic beasts increased. In the beginning, there were only a few, but later on more and more demonic beasts broke through the barrier. Initially, Blue Parasol Sect was still able to barely deal with them due to their numbers. However, as time passed, casualties began to appear. The demonic beasts became even crazier as well. The moment they entered, they began to massacre. The battle situation was unexpectedly bitter, and the ground was already filled with the blood of disciples and demonic beasts, as though it was about to form a river. However, the number of demonic beasts gathered outside the barrier increased. When Zhu Yao looked over, she was practically shocked. It was a black mass, and the demonic beasts were ramming against each other everywhere. As the battle of attrition continued, even Su Xian's face paled a little as well. Evidently, this situation had exceeded his expectations as well. Zhu Yao felt that something was amiss. It shouldn't be like this. Logically speaking, though demonic beasts were united, they were undisciplined and free. It was still rare for them to attack human practitioners so crazily, and furthermore, they did not hesitate to lower their ranks in order to break through, unless there was a reason that prevented them from coming. With a loud bang, a fourth-ranked demonic beast landed not far away from her. It only had a single breath left, yet its bell-like eyes were staring straight in her direction, and its eyes were filled with insane killing intent. Suddenly, a deep and hoarse male voice resounded in her ears. Kill, 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 kill. As though it was trapped in an endless loop, a single syllable repeated endlessly. Zhu Yao was startled, and only then did she recall that this avatar of hers seemed to be able to hear the voices of demonic beasts. Earlier, the scene was too chaotic, and she had neglected it for a moment. Taking a deep breath, she calmed her heart. She carefully listened to the sounds in the surroundings. However, she shockingly realized, not only that demonic beast on the ground, no matter if it was outside the barrier, or the demonic beasts that had already entered the barrier, they were all repeating the same word. Kill, 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 kill. What's with the sense of déjà vu caused by a virus infection? After taking a closer look, even the madness in the eyes of those demonic beasts were the same, as though they were being controlled. The moment this thought rose, a clear and melodious sound faintly resounded in her ears. It sounded like a flute, yet it was even clearer than the sound of a flute. That sound was hidden within the furious roars of the crowd of demonic beasts, faintly discernible. If she had not intentionally calmed her heart to listen to the beasties' voices earlier, she would not have noticed it at all. Zhu Yao immediately released her divine sense and probed in the direction of the flute sound. On the other side of the barrier, behind the dense crowd of demonic beasts, a black figure was mixed within. It was actually a human figure. In his hands, he was currently holding onto a musical instrument and was currently playing it, releasing rhythmic sounds. And with every sound, the demonic beasts that were slamming into the barrier would put in even more effort, and the demonic beasts that were entering the barrier would become even crazier as well. There were even some demonic beasts that had begun to self-destruct their demonic cores. The hell? This bitch is controlling this crowd of demonic beasts. Ting. Zhu Yao, who knew the truth, dropped the conversation window. Objective for the second side mission has appeared. Please complete it as soon as possible. Brave young lady, hurry and seize the god's artifact. 2. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. What was this side mission, and when did she accept it? And what the hell was that too? Why did she have to start a new quest, hey? She's cursing me, right? She's cursing me, right? She's definitely cursing me, right? The conversation window flashed for a moment, and then disappeared. She didn't even bother asking if she would accept it. Was she betting that she wouldn't reject it? She really couldn't reject it. Mama's egg, that black-clothed man was holding on to a god's artifact, right? That's why he was able to control the beast wave. Turning back to look at the desperate situation here, it really could only end after she snatched that man's god's artifact. The main point was, how was she supposed to get over? That person was on the other side of the barrier, and she wasn't a demonic beast either. With such a high-end barrier, even if she knew how to burrow into the ground, she wouldn't be able to get out. Just as Zhu Yao was feeling anxious, she raised her head and looked towards a demonic beast that had just passed through the barrier. Maybe Big Sis Yao. While she was distracted, a demonic beast pounced over. Yu Ying's figure flashed and carried her away from where she stood. He anxiously sized her up for a moment. Are you all right? I'm fine. No matter what, she had to give it a try first. Yuing, help me block them for a moment. All right. Yuing habitually nodded. Zhu Yao patted a high-grade defensive talisman on his body. First, she placed down a layer of barrier around her body, and then she used lightning spiritual energy to envelop her entire body. She then stared at the barrier with all her might, until another demonic beast broke through the barrier, turning into a stream of light and flew in. At the same time, she flew up, and before the barrier could recover, she passed through it. However, the barrier recovered extremely quickly. Before she even flew past, it had already begun to recover. Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat. In a moment of desperation, she circulated the spiritual energy in her entire body and increased her speed. In an instant, her entire body was like a firecracker. So bam! She fell into the beast wave. Raising her head, her entire world was filled with pairs of crazed blood-red eyes. Chapter 215. Though the landing method was a little problematic, Zhu Yao still weakly raised a paw. Hi! Roared at what answered her was a series of beast roars, which caused her ears to ring. There's actually someone stupid enough to send herself here to seek death. A dark voice sounded. The beast horde suddenly split to two sides, spontaneously opening up a path. A black-clothed man walked over leisurely. In his hand was a musical instrument that looked like a fan and a flute, and it was even faintly emitting out a rainbow-colored light. The man first looked at her with disdain, and then revealed a sinister smile. With a wave of his hand he said, "Kill her." The demonic beast horde instantly swarmed forward. Sesame. Zhu Yao immediately released Sesame from her divine sense. In any case, the people outside could not see the situation here, so she had no more worries. Oh! Roar Sesame appeared out of nowhere, and with a single kick, it killed 4 to 5 8th-ranked demonic beasts. With a sweep of its tail, it flipped over a bunch of them, and then pounced towards that man. The black-clothed man coldly laughed. He flew up, and dodged Sesame's attack in a flash. Now's the time. Zhu Yao grabbed the opportunity, took out that purple extreme heavenly lightning talisman, and injected spiritual energy into it, preparing to activate it. Naturally, she would not come here to die for nothing. She had already made a detailed plan. She released Sesame the moment she arrived. Though there were many demonic beasts here, they were all below 9th rank. As an ascended demonic immortal, Sesame naturally would not be afraid of these little beasts. The one she had to pay attention to the most was this man. He was a demonic beast as well, and he could already transform, which proved that he was a 10th-ranked demonic beast. She really should be thankful that her master gave her this talisman. Sealed within was the Ascension Tribulation Lightning, the purple extreme heavenly lightning. No matter how powerful a demonic beast was, it was impossible to block it. Hence, when Zhu Yao saw him approaching, she immediately took out the talisman and circulated her spiritual energy. Heavenly lightning. Descend. The sound of a flute resounded. The man suddenly lowered his head and blew into the musical instrument in his hand. Halfway through activating the talisman, the blood in Zhu Yao's chest churned. An irresistible pressure assaulted her, and she puked out a mouthful of blood. Sesame, who was still madly sweeping through the demonic beast horde earlier, fell onto the ground with a bang from the pressure. After struggling for a while, it could no longer move. Mistress. Zhu Yao shockingly realized her own spiritual energy had stopped circulating, as though it was suddenly cut off. What was that sound? You do have some ability. That man stopped his music, and with slightly narrowed eyes, he sized Zhu Yao up for a moment. In an instant his expression turned cold. Then I can't let you live. He slowly descended from the sky and walked towards her step by step. Zhu Yao's heart sank. This time, she had miscalculated. The man stopped 2 steps away from her, but the smile on his lips became even more sinister. He slowly raised the instrument in his hand. Only then did Zhu Yao clearly see what that thing was. It was actually a gigantic feather, and the rainbow colors on it seemed to be alive, as they constantly flowed about. A line of words was clearly written on the white root of the feather. Bug. As expected, The mission objective was this thing. Zhu Yao clearly knew that he was going to harm her, and she also knew that she had to dodge. However, her body did not listen to her, and she was basically unable to move a single step. She could only watch as he tapped that feather on her shoulder. In an instant, a scorching sensation spread throughout her entire body, and even her divine sense was faintly aching. He said with emphasis on every single word, "Tell me your real name?" Zhu Yao was startled. An irresistible emotion instantly rose in the depths of her heart, and she subconsciously wanted to answer. "Mistress, you can't say it." Sesame suddenly roared out. "This is a curse. He wants to bind your soul. If you answer him, you will be ordered around by him for eternity." The hell? So vicious? The man's expression sank. Evidently, he was dissatisfied with Sesame's actions. With a twist of his hand, the pressure Zhu Yao felt increased once again, and even her consciousness was a little blurry. "Speak. Your name. Who wants to be bound by you, hey? You pervert. This old lady here is going to die from pain. Can't you say a fake one?" "Mistress, hold on. You must not answer." Sesame grew even more anxious. While resisting the pressure on its body, it struggled. "As long as you answer once, no matter if it's your real name or not, the soul contract will take effect." Pwah. Before it could even finish, the pressure on its body instantly increased, and it was pressed even deeper into the ground. "Speak, what's your name?" The man's expression instantly turned ruthless, as he ruthlessly stared at her in the eyes. Zhu Yao felt that even her primordial spirit was about to be burnt by that scorching sensation. Her thoughts were already a little out of control, and she had a strong urge to answer his question. Even if she desperately bit her tongue, she was unable to stop the words that were about to come out of her mouth. "Mistress, don't answer. If you answer, in the future, as long as he calls out your name, you must obey his orders." So the thing that activated the contract was the name. But wasn't this a setting of Western fantasy? This guy must have come to the wrong set. "Humph," the man coldly snorted. He looked at her with disdain, and confidently said, "You're just a mere Azoth practitioner. Do you think you can resist?" The urge to speak the truth in the depths of her heart grew even more intense. Zhu Yao felt as though she was about to explode. Hence, she decided to give in. "My name is..." The man's eyes shone. With an as-expected expression, he waited for the contract to be completed. As expected, Zhu Yao set out her name word by word. "My name is..." Ainsi Dante conquering Sri Lanka earned Mrs. Special Lin Zhuiyue. Not an ordinary man's descendants 10,000 generations will have talents rising into the clouds. Names can't be distinguished if you have the guts. Then remember it. Ho ho, if you can say it out loud, then I will call you ancestor or something. You scum of the show. Why does China's 5,000 years of history have to be set in Western fantasy? What the hell is the binding of names? It's not like it's RMB, so what's the use of tying it to my side? Alright, if I were to continue, the readers would think that I'm trying to fill up the word count. Hence, I'll use ellipses to replace dots and dots. 5,000 words will be omitted from the following. Choose your words carefully. Eat and drink to your heart's content. Isn't it just a name? I'll give it to you, as long as you remember it. Man, that sesame, that beasts. Do you need me to repeat it again? Zhu Yao gave an especially sincere and kind suggestion. The man was stunned for 2 seconds, before he regained his senses from the gigantic name. His expression instantly turned sinister. You're playing me. That's right. Zhu Yao shamelessly nodded. The talisman in her hands activated at the same time, and with a thunderous roar, a gigantic dragon formed from purple lightning descended from the sky, bringing with it a pressure that no one could look straight at. All of the demonic beasts looked towards the sky at the same time. Zhu Yao used an evasion talisman, and instantly flashed several dozen meters away. The moment she called out the name, the pressure on her body disappeared. It was just enough for her to activate the lightning talisman. A lightning dragon struck straight down at the man. The purple lightning glow instantly illuminated the entire horizon. Although Zhu Yao had already distanced herself, the remaining might of the Ascension lightning tribulation still caused her mind to tremble, and even her Azoth core was a little unstable. The demonic beasts present were even more intimidated by this immense heavenly might, as they all prostrated on the ground. 10 breaths later, that light slowly dimmed, and at the place where she and that man stood earlier, only a huge charred pit remained. At the center of the pit, a rainbow light flashed. Zhu Yao flew back, and the thing that was glowing was that side mission. Bending her waist to pick it up, she realized that the feather was not damaged in the slightest, and was extremely bright and beautiful. Even the Ascension Lightning Tribulation was unable to destroy it, as expected of a god's artifact. But why did she feel that this feather looked a little familiar? I never expected that I would lose in the hands of an Azoth practitioner. Suddenly, the man's voice once again resounded, and he faintly sounded as though he was gritting his teeth. Zhu Yao was startled, as she cautiously looked at her surroundings, yet she was unable to find his figure. Suddenly, a black smoke slowly gathered in the air, forming a black illusory figure. This energy is... Oh, it's the devil again. Why didn't she find it strange in the slightest? Don't be complacent. I will definitely repay you for today's grudge. He suddenly let out a sinister laugh, and his body emitted out an aura that was even more terrifying than the black-clothed man earlier. With a profound look, he said, "Little girl, we still have a long way to go." "Who's Fang Chong?" she asked on reflex. She could faintly hear the sound of him puking out blood. "Arrogant stinking brat, this daddy here will kill you right now." The devil instantly broke through, and pounced towards Zhu Yao furiously. What did she say? Just as she was about to face him head-on, that mass of darkness dissipated into nothingness the moment it pounced towards her. At the same time, in a cave residence in the demonic beast territory, a black-clothed man puked out a mouthful of blood, and the devilish aura around his body began to churn and scatter. While heavily panting, his hand was placed on his chest, and his entire body was trembling uncontrollably. It was as though he had seen something terrifying. Just who was it? To actually be able to destroy a strand of his divine sense in an instant. Even that person back then was unable to do anything to his divine sense. So how could it be destroyed so easily? If he had not cut off the connection with his divine sense in time, even his main body would have been for a moment. He felt a lingering fear. When did such a terrifying figure appear in this world? Zhu Yao, who was about to cast an art to counterattack, lowered her hand. She released her divine sense to sense the surroundings, and only then did she confirm that the devil's aura was indeed gone. As expected, all villains who talked too much were paper tigers. If you lost, so be it. Why must you leave behind a shadow to speak so ruthlessly? Do you think you're Grey Wolf? However, that man earlier was most likely not the devil's main body. It was merely a strand of his divine sense that had possessed the demonic beast's body. There might even be a time when he would come and settle the score with her. Yet another troublesome matter. Meow! Suddenly, a furry thing crawled up to her feet. Lowering her head, she saw a fourth-rank young demonic beast hugging onto her leg with its claws, rubbing against it in satisfaction. Zhu Yao was startled, and immediately retreated a few steps back. The hell, she had forgotten that she was still within the crowd of demonic beasts. Meow. Seeing that she had suddenly retreated, that young demonic beast had a disappointed look. It whimpered, and tears were faintly about to fall from its eyes, as though it had suffered a huge grievance. What was going on? Zhu Yao looked around, and only then did she realize that the place was abnormally quiet. Forget about the roars of the demonic beasts. Even the sounds of the barrier crashing had stopped as well. Evidently, they were controlled by that god's artifact earlier, and had lost their rationality. Now they had regained consciousness. However, why were they all staring at her? Did they have to look at her with such thirsty eyes? Hey, what's with drooling? Where's your dignity? Where's your integrity? I like her. I really like her. I like. I really want to lick her. I like her too. I really want to hold her paws. I really want to let her stroke my fur. I really want to give birth to little beasties for her. Zhu Yao, have you all really returned to normal? Don't learn from the rise fire beast, hey. Oh, Aolo! Just when she was at a loss of what to do, Sesame leaped out. With a swing of its tail, It swept away that baby beast which was still trying to approach her. With a "you bunch of trash" gaze, it swept its gaze across the beasts present. "All of you scram. I'm Mistress's genuine contracted beastie." Aolo. In an instant, the tyrannical aura of a 10th-ranked demonic beast was fully released, pressing down on the beasties on the ground. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at it. "You're a hindsight. Earlier, when you were lying on the ground, why didn't I see you being this awe-inspiring?" "Enough sesame." Zhu Yao took a step forward and swept a glance at the demonic beasts. "Does anyone know who the black-robed man who controlled you earlier was?" The beasties exchanged glances and shook their heads in unison. "When we reacted, we were already here." That's right, that's right. The moment we woke up, we saw Mistress." "I like Mistress." "Me too." "Oh, Roar, that's my mistress." Sesame instantly exploded. "Ha! It seemed like she wouldn't be able to get any clues out of them." Zhu Yao sighed. "Alright, everyone disperse. If you have nothing to do, don't randomly stroll around the human practitioner's territory. If it's possible, call the beasties outside back as well." "Yes, Mistress." "No problem, Mistress. Listen to Mistress." "Meow. Sesame. That's my mistress, hey. What the hell are you guys randomly calling out for?" The beasties, who had regained their rationality, were still rather obedient. After agreeing to her request, they raised their heads and began to call out one after another. "Let's go home, time to eat. Let's go home, time to eat. Let's go home, time to eat." The barrier shook, and demonic beasts flew back one after another. She felt that her worldview had received a severe blow. As expected, it was better not to understand the words of demonic beasts. The demonic beasts flew back from the outside of the barrier. However, it was not as difficult as breaking out. It was as though there were no obstructions at all, as they easily passed through the barrier. Zhu Yao's eyes shone. Could it be that this barrier was a one-way teleportation? She had to break through when she went out, but returning was very easy. Then, Zhu Yao felt joy in the depths of her heart. Earlier, she was still thinking about how she was going to return. This way, things would be much simpler. Sesame. Zhu Yao kept her divine artifact and recalled Sesame while she was at it. She then immediately flew towards the other side with her flying sword. As expected, when she passed through the barrier, it merely shook for a moment, and she passed through it without any obstructions. Before she could even heave a sigh of relief, a fireball suddenly came flying towards her. Zhu Yao turned around and immediately rode on her mystic artifact. She made a 360-degree turn in the air before she managed to dodge that fireball. That was close. "Senior Marshal Sister Zhu, why is it you?" The main culprit, Yiling, suddenly exclaimed, successfully attracting the gazes of all the disciples over. They looked at her with a shocked expression. "Why did you come over from the demonic beast side? Could it be?" She took in a deep breath and had an expression as though she had guessed something incredible. A moment later, as though she was trying to cover something up, she tried to explain. Impossible. I must have seen wrongly. How could Senior Marshal Sister Zhu?" Chapter 216. What happened? Xiansu noticed them, glanced at Zhu Yao, and frowned. And nothing. Yiling hurriedly shook her head, however. She looked at Zhu Yao meaningfully. I didn't see anything. Please don't misunderstand Senior Sister Zhu. It would have been better if she did not say these words. The moment she said it, it was equivalent to indirectly confirming what Zhu Yao had done. The gazes of the crowd of disciples were instantly filled with suspicion. "Ling, or don't be afraid. Your master is here." Xiansu released the pressure of his own nascent soul, as he glared at Zhu Yao with a blade-like gaze. "In this world, there is still no one who has the ability to threaten my disciple." "Master." Yiling's face was touched, yet, her expression grew even more hesitant. A moment later, she gritted her teeth and said with a stubborn look, "No, it's really nothing. Senior Sister Zhu treats me so well, I can't. I really didn't see anything." Looking at these two master and disciple who had already entered the stage of a two-man show, Zhu Yao simply wanted to roar out. "Are you two blind? I haven't even said a single word yet. Xiansu's brows furrowed even deeper, his body already faintly emitting killing intent. Just what did you do to Ling? I want to know as well. Zhu Yao nodded in agreement before turning to look at Yiling. Yiling, just what did you do to you? Yiling was stunned. Her tears were like pearls from a broken necklace, pouring out. Her sorrowful and weak appearance caused everyone present to feel sorry for her. She seemed to be frightened as she shrank into Xiansu's embrace and said with a choked voice, I really didn't see anything. With such a frail look, it was as though Zhu Yao had really done something to her. The hell? I'm just asking a question. The hell are you crying for? Don't go too far. The flower protector, Qi Ping, was the first to rush out. With a face filled with rage, he glared at Zhu Yao. You're the one who did something wrong. Yet you're actually threatening Junior Marshal Sister Ling? What did I do? These people's brains must be filled with tofu. I don't care what you've done. Qi Ping was even more enraged. He looked as if he wanted to rush out and chop her with a knife. Linger is so good to you. It's bad enough that you've been targeting her, but now you're even threatening her in front of everyone. Don't think that just because you've formed your gold core, we can't do anything to you. Zhu Yao laughed out of extreme anger. I really want to know, just what did I do? Why don't you tell me and make me feel guilty? You, senior apprentice brother Qi. Yiling rushed out and tugged at Qi Ping, adding fuel to the fire. Don't blame senior apprentice sister Zhu, it's my fault. Linger, you don't have to worry. Xiansu once again protected Yiling in his embrace. His expression sank, as he coldly looked at Zhu Yao. Your master has already made a decision on this matter. After saying that, the pressure from his body no longer held back, as it pressed straight towards Zhu Yao. Damn it, these two master and disciple are trying to silence me. Zhu Yao's heart sank. It seemed like in front of Mary Sue, logic would not work. At the very most, she could just escape back to the demonic beast side. It would be better than staying together with this bunch of animals with their lower half of their IQs. Mother! Just as she was about to defend, Ewing walked over from the side. As if he didn't notice the atmosphere around him, he tugged at her sleeve. You came back safely? Amen. Zhu Yao habitually nodded. Junior apprentice brother Yu. Yiling however looked at Yu Ying with a worried look, and kindly reminded him. Hurry and leave that place. Senior apprentice sister Zhu Shishi. She paused halfway through her words. Her face was filled with pain and disappointment. Though she did not say anything, it felt as though she had already said everything. Almost all of the disciples had confirmed that Zhu Yao must have done something huge that would betray the sect. However, as though Ewing did not hear anything, he continued to look at Zhu Yao. It's good that you're fine. Earlier, Mother risked her life to charge through the barrier. Ewing was really shocked. Zhu Yao turned to look at him, only to see Ewing smiling at her with an even gentler smile. His appearance was growing more and more similar to Xiao Bai in the first place, and this smile of his was even more radiant. In an instant, the slightly dark battlefield seemed to have brightened up a little. I knew Mother would be fine, he slowly said. That bolt of heavenly lightning that flashed in the sky earlier, Mother was the one who summoned it, right? Zhu Yao's eyes shone as she instantly understood what this brat meant. She cooperatively nodded. That's right. The sovereign in that labyrinth said that demonic beasts would never appear in groups. If a beast wave were to occur, there would definitely be a reason behind it. She intentionally raised her voice, glanced at the crowd, and said with a half-truth, half-lie tone. That's why I found an opportunity to pass through the barrier, and as expected, I discovered a 10th-ranked demonic beast commander over there. Fortunately, the sovereign bestowed me with that purple extreme heavenly lightning talisman, which allowed me to escape unscathed. When her words fell, the entire place went into an uproar. Purple extreme heavenly lightning. It's actually the purple extreme heavenly lightning. Isn't that the tribulation lightning for ascension? There's actually such a talisman in this world. This should be considered a talisman treasure, right? No wonder there was such a huge spiritual energy fluctuation in the sky earlier, and the demonic beasts retreated the moment the thunder rumbled. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement, and even Xian Su's expression was a little moved. Ling, who was in his embrace however, had a completely darkened expression. Initially, when she saw Zhu Yao returning from outside the barrier, her first reaction was naturally that Zhu Yao had colluded with demonic beasts and betrayed the sect. However, she never expected that the situation would suddenly turn around. Everyone's disdain towards her in the beginning instantly turned into worship. Uneasiness instantly rose in the depths of her heart, and she subconsciously pulled Xian Su, who was next to her. Only then did Xian Su, who was shocked by the purple extreme heavenly lightning, regain his senses. A little suspicion once again rose in the depths of his heart. "You're saying, you attracted the tribulation lightning, which scared the beast wave away. How could there be a talisman for the purple extreme heavenly lightning in this world?" "How would I know?" Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. "Ask that sovereign." Xian Su's expression instantly darkened. Evidently, he recalled the matter where he couldn't even enter her sword formation. "Oh right, Junior Marshal Niesling. Or what did you see earlier?" Zhu Yao looked at Mary Sue with a smile. Ling's expression paled. A hint of panic flashed past her eyes. A moment later, she awkwardly said, "Linger's eyes must have gone bad? I thought." "Thought what?" Zhu Yao chuckled, as though she wanted to get to the bottom of things. Naturally, Ling couldn't say that she thought she was a traitor, hence, she once again put on that pitiful look. "Senior Marshal Sister Zhu? Don't cry anymore." Zhu Yao coldly laughed. "I didn't say anything earlier, but the moment you cry, I'm being accused of doing something shameful? If you continue to cry, someone might even blame me for destroying the world." At the side, Qi Ping's expression instantly stiffened, and in an instant his face alternated between green and white. Ling's expression however grew even more aggrieved, and her tears were about to fall. Evidently, the crowd had recalled her baseless accusation earlier as well. Her harem were still alright, after all, they didn't have any intelligence anyway. However, when the other disciples looked at her, their eyes carried a hint of strangeness. Ling clenched her fists, and a moment later, she lowered her head and said, "I'm sorry, Senior Marshal Sister Zhu, I'm not your Senior Marshal Sister." Zhu Yao immediately interrupted his words, instantly attracting the glares of all the men in her harem. Zhu Yao couldn't be bothered with these retards, and immediately pointed out the truth. "You should be calling me Senior Marshal Aunt." She had formed her Azoth Corps for so long, yet Ling still kept calling her Senior Marshal Sister. It wasn't like she was the male lead, so who would want to be on the same level as her? She then turned to look at Xian Su, who was coldly looking at her, and said with a heavy tone, "Sovereign, this is where you're wrong. There's a huge problem with your way of teaching. You're already so old, yet you can't even differentiate your seniority. It's best that you stop thinking about romance, and teach your disciples more. As the saying goes, no matter how poor you are, you can't be poor as a disciple, and no matter how bitter you are, you can't be bitter in educating." She said it with such sincerity that even she herself was moved, you know? Xian Su and Ling's expressions however darkened at the same time. Zhu Yao had successfully turned the tables, and her mood instantly became better. She silently gave her obedient Sun Yuing next to her a thumbs up. Though everything she said was true, in that situation earlier, if not for Yu Ying's reminder, she really wouldn't know how to cover it up. Especially when that god's artifact on her would definitely be exposed. The beast wave this time ended just like that. Because everyone was fearful of Lord Labyrinth Palace, no one doubted the veracity of Zhu Yao's words. Just as the disciples were about to count the number of casualties and return home, an unforeseen event suddenly occurred. The transparent barrier that separated the two continents suddenly emitted out a faint red light. As though it was covered with a layer of red plastic film. It covered the entire continent. That red light flashed for a moment, yet, it faintly showed signs of shattering. Like a net, cracks began to appear on its surface. Not good. The world barrier is about to disappear. An Azoth elder exclaimed. Panic and fear surfaced on the faces of all the disciples. Once the barrier shatters, most likely, the demonic beasts will no longer have any reservations, and will definitely wreak havoc everywhere. When that time comes, I'm afraid we will no longer have the strength to retaliate. Everyone present was anxious. Zhu Yao clenched her fists. She was not worried about the demonic beasts. Though demonic beasts were fierce, they would not initiate conflicts with humans. What she was truly worried about was that devil. There were devils in that continent, and she was not even sure just how many of them there were. However, seeing how he was controlling the beast wave, she knew that he was definitely thinking of coming over here as well. If the devil were to come over, then they would truly not have the strength to retaliate at all. Is there no way to repair the barrier? Zhu Yao asked. Xiansu coldly snorted. This barrier has existed since the ancient era, and it has long been lost. Who in this world would know of a way to repair it? Ancient era? Why was it that when she heard the word ancient era, she felt a thick sense of humor? No matter what, we can't just sit here and wait for death. Where's the formation core of this formation? Only by seeing the formation core would one know if it could be repaired or not. Everyone sank into silence. It can't be? This barrier had existed for so many years. Yet no one knew where the formation core was? Did these people deserve it? Or did they deserve it? Or did they deserve it? Let's find the formation core first. Zhu Yao could not be bothered to waste her breath with them. Bringing along Yuing, she flew on her sword and began to search the surroundings. The other disciples looked at each other for a moment, and then, they began to search for the formation core one after another. Zhu Yao circled the entire forest 3 times, yet she was completely unable to find even the shadow of the formation core. Logically speaking, the formation core should be the place with the strongest spiritual energy ripples, but no matter how she released her divine sense, she could not sense it in the slightest. She was already a little anxious. Could it be that this barrier was truly hopeless? Mistress. Sesame suddenly spoke in her divine sense. I feel like there seems to be something in front of us. In front of us? Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. They were already out of the forest in front of them. Logically speaking, the formation core shouldn't be too far away from the barrier. Can you sense what it is exactly? I don't know. Sesame's voice carried a hint of confusion. I keep feeling like there's something calling me over there. What could it be? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment, and then flew in the direction Sesame said. Big Sis Yao. Yuing suddenly tugged onto her sleeves. Zhu Yao turned to look, only to see his head was suddenly filled with sweat, and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Yuing, what's wrong? She checked on his meridians, and realized that there were no abnormalities with his body, just that there were only strands of spiritual energy left in his body. Only then did she recall that Yuing had just built his foundation. After a great battle, how could he possibly have much spiritual energy left in his body? She then descended, carried him to the side to sit, and then channeled some spiritual energy into him. Rest for a moment first, don't follow me. Zhu Yao stroked his head. I'm going to take a look at the front. I'll come back to fetch you in a moment. Amen, he obediently nodded. Big Sis Yao, you have to hurry back. All right. Zhu Yao once again flew on her flying sword. The more she headed towards the place Sesame mentioned, the more she had a premonition that that place was definitely the crux of this formation. Until they arrived at a practitioner's town. This was the town closest to the barrier. Because of the beast wave, the people inside had already been dismissed, and not a single soul could be seen in this town. Mistress, it's at the very center. Sesame suddenly called out excitedly. At the center of the town was a plaza. Stones with various patterns were laid out in the middle, forming a simple circular diagram. Various messy symbols were even drawn on it. From the looks of it, it was just an ordinary flat ground. However, currently, a blue-robed man was sitting on that flat ground, and the diagram on the stone was currently emitting out a white formation glow. This was the formation core. Zhu Yao and her little companion were dumbfounded. It was no wonder no one could find the formation core of the barrier after so many years. Who would have known that such an important thing would be placed so openly at the very center of a practitioner's town, where everyone could see it? As for that man, Zhu Yao took a closer look. That man was sitting on the formation core, as though he had already entered a meditative state. The formation on the ground was currently emitting out a fragmented white glow. Probably because it had existed for too long, the diagram on the formation was not complete. However, the mysterious thing was, within that white glow, the fragmented portion was slowly recovering. He was repairing the formation. Although she did not know who this person was, she did not plan on disturbing him. Not even a moment later, the formation became more and more complete, and the white glow grew brighter as well. Slowly rising like a 3D projection, it gathered into a strange shape above the man. That shape could not be seen clearly, but it looked like a gigantic demonic beast, and it faintly had 4 hooves. Zhu Yao instantly heaved a sigh of relief. This was the final step of the formation. As long as the manifestation was completed, the formation would. There was a loud rumble. Just as the manifestation was about to be completed, a fireball suddenly descended from the sky and directly smashed onto the manifestation, instantly dispersing all of the white glow. The hell? There's actually a demonic beast shield that escaped into the market. Yiling appeared above with a righteous look. Casting an art with her fingers, she once again summoned out a fireball. Die, demonic beast. Stop. Zhu Yao condensed a stream of water and struck towards the fireball, extinguishing her art. Lowering her head to take a look, the man had already puked out a large mouthful of blood due to the formation's backlash, and fell onto the ground. At that moment, she felt like pinching that Mary Sue to death. Senior Martial Sister Zhu, how could you? Yiling landed, and her face was filled with criticism. She was actually protecting the demonic beast. Are you blind? Can't you read more books when you're free? That was the manifestation of the formation earlier. This time it was really over. This person was half crippled, who was going to repair the formation. As expected, this Mary Sue was a bug. Yiling was startled, and only then did she realize there was someone on the ground. How could this be? Zhu Yao immediately flew over. Hey, are you all right? Worriedly, she held up the person on the ground and took a look. Stunned. The hell? It can't be, right? The man panted as he slightly opened his eyes. Looking towards Yiling's direction, his eyes suddenly shone. As he puked out blood, he muttered to himself. There's actually such an otherworldly existence in this world. Smack. Zhu Yao raised her hand and smacked the side of his neck, instantly knocking him unconscious. Chapter 217. Senior Sister Zhu. Yiling's face was filled with astonishment, as she said with criticism in her eyes. How can you be so heavy-handed? He's already injured. Zhu Yao wanted to chuckle at her face. Don't forget, how did he get injured? I made him faint just to lessen his pain. Also, call me martial uncle. You have no manners. Yiling's face paled, and she began to put on the Mary Sue expression again. Unfortunately, no one bought it. Zhu Yao checked the man's meridians, and realized that he was merely unconscious. The meridians in his body were flowing in reverse, however, they were recovering on their own, and his life was not in danger. Zhu. Martial uncle. This time, Yiling saw the man's full appearance, and her eyes instantly lit up. She probed. You know this fellow Taoist? Of course she knew him. She knew him too well. Even the words on this man's face looked exactly like Mary Sue's, okay? The word bug blinded his dog eyes. The moment she saw him, she knew that he was the male lead in the plot, the Beast Lord who destroyed the world. Then the question was, as the Beast Lord, the king of demonic beasts, why the hell did he come all the way to the territory of human cultivators to help them repair the barrier? Are you feeling bloated after eating so much? Did he want to come here for a tour and contribute to the tourist attraction? Zhu Yao had the urge to throw him here and let him fend for himself. In any case, keeping him around would only destroy the world in the future. But now that Mary Sue was beside her, if she just left her alone, she might turn around and pick up a second-hand one. Furthermore, the most important thing right now was this formation. The barrier won't be able to hold on for much longer. We have to repair the formation core immediately. Zhu Yao looked at the formation diagram on the ground. Formation core? Yiling was startled as she suddenly understood. Looking at the ground, she said, This is the formation core? That's right, he was repairing the formation core just now. Yiling's face turned pale as she explained. I don't know. So what if you knew? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at her. Hurry and invite the sovereigns and elders over. Tell them that we have already found the formation core. But Yiling looked at the person on the ground a little hesitantly. Hurry and go. Zhu Yao's expression sank. Only then did Yiling reluctantly leave on her sword. Mistress, hurry and save him. Sesame suddenly sent a voice transmission. Zhu Yao's figure paused, and a hint of strangeness flashed past the depths of her heart. When did Sesame become so kind? His meridians are damaged. I can't heal them. This person's cultivation was higher than hers, so I can only wait for him to heal himself. Then let's use my inner core, Sesame suggested with an excited look. Zhu Yao was stunned. Sesame, have you gone mad? The inner core was akin to a demonic beast's life. Yet it actually took it out so easily? You'll definitely be cured this way, he answered seriously, instantly turning into a white lotus. Holy shit, this doesn't make sense. Sesame, do you know this person? I don't know her. Then why the hell did you sacrifice yourself to save him? Besides, he didn't need you to save him at all, okay? I don't know either. Sesame's voice carried a hint of anxiousness and confusion. I just suddenly feel like saving him. Master, please let me out. It would be strange if he let it out. This was not normal. This was definitely not normal. When did Sesame change to the path of the Holy Father? How come I didn't know? Could it be that this beast lord was like Yiling and had a Jiaxu halo? He could also make people fall in love at first sight? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment, and then immediately cast a forceful awakening mystic art on him. She poked the corpse on the ground. Hey, wake up. Hey, wake up, it's daybreak. An instant later, the person on the ground frowned and opened his eyes. He first looked at his surroundings blankly, and then looked at Zhu Yao. His expression gradually turned cold. Who are you? I should be the one asking you this, right? Who are you? The man's expression turned even colder. He sized her up for a moment, and his frown grew even deeper. He asked in return. Were you the one who interrupted my incantation? No. Zhu Yao shook her head. You still dare to deny it? The man was suddenly enraged. Earlier, I clearly sensed your aura. Since you dare to launch a sneak attack on this seat, then you better be prepared to pay the price. He stood up. White light flashed in his hands, and killing intent filled the surroundings. The hell? I can't even speak the truth. Does he have to be this hot-tempered? Zhu Yao leaped to the side, and was just about to face him head-on. However, the man suddenly choked, puked out a mouthful of blood, and fainted once again. Zhu Yao. Zhu Yao lowered her head and carefully inspected the formations on the ground. The more she looked, the more difficult she felt it was. She actually couldn't understand a single one of the diagrams on the ground. She could only roughly deduce that there were various different formations contained within. She could only recognize one of the teleportation formations. And it was a one-way teleportation, and the range did not exceed 50 kilometers. Zhu Yao instantly deduced that it should be teleported back to the demonic beast continent. It would make it convenient for him to return. Just when she was worrying about how to deal with this Jiaxu, great, she could directly throw it back. As for the others, she couldn't understand a single one of them. Though the arrangement of these formations looked a little like... Wait a minute. Why did they look so much like sacrificial seals? The sealing mystic art her master taught her was also the first layer of seals in the devil sealing grounds back then. But what's with the diagrams at the side? Shouldn't sacrificial seals be written with runes? This is long-awaited gunny sack. If the strokes on these diagrams were a little straighter, and the corners were a little smoother. The hell? Earlier, she had thought that these were drawings, but looking at them now, they were clearly runes. Equals. I really want to know just which idiot wrote this seal. Does your teacher know that your writing is so ugly? Calling you a dog picker is basically bullying a dog, alright? After figuring out what kind of formation this was, Zhu Yao heaved a sigh of relief. She tried her best to identify those distorted handwritten characters, but the more she looked, the more shocked she felt. When she finished looking at the entire formation, she simply couldn't believe her own eyes. This sacrificial seal was actually reversed. Sacrificial seals were formations used to seal devils, so naturally, she thought it was set up for the demonic beast devils. However, according to the arrangement of this seal, the ones sealed inside were actually human practitioners. The entire cultivation continent was sealed inside this formation. How was that possible? Doing this was completely meaningless. The seal of the devil race was completely ineffective against human practitioners, even if it was... Wait a minute. Could it be that it was protecting the mortals here? The devils were unable to break through the sacrificial seal, no matter if it was from the inside to the outside, or from the outside to the inside. Crack! A cracking sound could be heard, and the area of damage to the barrier grew larger. There was no more time. No matter if this seal was reversed or not, it had to be repaired. With the experience of almost getting out of hand when she repaired it back then, Zhu Yao did not dare to recklessly enter it. She simply cast an art from afar, and activated this seal. In an instant, the circular formation once again shone with a blinding white light. Zhu Yao cautiously transferred a strand of spiritual energy over, but it was unexpectedly bounced off. Instead, even more spiritual energy surged into her body. She had never seen a seal that didn't consume spiritual energy, but rather, transferred spiritual energy instead. Could it be that because the seal was reversed, the circulation of spiritual energy was reversed as well? Not only would it not be consumed, it could even be replenished? Zhu Yao approached closer to investigate, and as expected, she could sense the dense spiritual energy in the center of the seal. Wasn't this a little too convenient? This formation core was clearly an excellent place for cultivation. However, normal people were basically unable to absorb such dense spiritual energy, and they might even explode to death. Ugh. The stiff corpse on the ground let out a groan, and there were faint signs of him waking up. Zhu Yao raised her hand, and with a bang, she gave it another punch. The stiff corpse once again fainted. It was time to deal with this fellow. Zhu Yao immediately activated the teleportation formation in the center of the formation, cast a wind-type mystic art, lifted this Jiaxu, and sent it into the formation. The man was slowly being engulfed by the formation's light. Suddenly, a scream rang. Ah! Senior Martial Sister Zhu. What are you doing? Yiling suddenly returned, and looked at her with a shocked expression. Behind her, there was no one else she should have brought along. Zhu Yao suddenly had a bad premonition. Hurry and release that fellow Taoist. She charged over like a firecracker, and it was unknown if it was intentional or not. When she reached out her hand to pull the man, she conveniently knocked Zhu Yao into the formation as well. In an instant, a white light shone, instantly surrounding the three of them. The hell, this girl was definitely her nemesis. In the next moment, a suffocating spiritual energy surrounded the two of them. Because the two of them suddenly barged in, the spiritual energy began to go berserk, greeting their bodies like blades. Not even a moment later, her body was already slashed with streaks of blood. Ah! This time, Yiling truly let out a scream of pain. Zhu Yao, on the other hand, was still fine. Her cultivation was higher than Yiling's, and her master had specially placed down a formation on her clothes. She merely felt a little piercing pain on her skin, and was not injured at all. Ah! Master! Save me! Yiling began to call for help, but no matter how she tried, she was unable to walk out. Instead, it caused the surrounding spiritual energy to go berserk even more violently. This time, not only were there streaks of blood, the spiritual energy directly charged into her dantian, and she puked out blood the moment she opened her mouth. Zhu Yao sat in a lotus position. As she guided spiritual energy into her body, she eased the pressure from the spiritual energy while restoring the seal. Master! Master! Yiling's eyes were about to pop out, and she puked out even more blood. Shut up! Zhu Yao threw a wind blade at her, and instantly gave her a slap. If you don't want to die, then sit down and guide spiritual energy into your body. Yiling was startled, and finally stopped her wailing and howling. However, fear was still present in the depths of her eyes. A moment later, she hesitantly sat down and began to absorb spiritual energy as she was told. The spiritual energy in the formation slowly began to stabilize as well and poured into their bodies. To be precise, it was pouring into Yiling's body. Though there was a lot of spiritual energy inside, most of them were of the 5 elements, and the lightning spiritual energy was pitifully thin. Zhu Yao sat for a moment, and was only able to guide in a tiny bit of spiritual energy, though a portion of the seal had been restored. Not even a moment later, Yiling encountered a bottleneck. Her head was filled with sweat, and her face was a little pale, as though she was enduring a huge amount of pain. The surrounding spiritual energy once again began to become unstable, and there were even faint signs of it going berserk. Zhu Yao was a little anxious. If this continued, before she could completely restore the seal, the two of them would die from the spiritual energy going berserk. Yet, when the formation was completely restored, it would stop. There was no way to stop it from the inside. What should she do? She turned to look at the stiff corpse at the side. Right now, the only thing she could do was to call this person over to help. But, was it really alright for him to meet Mary Sue? This was the rhythm of entering the main storyline at any moment. But if this continued, both of them would die. Furthermore, the seal was destroyed as well. When the barrier breaks, the devil would enter, and the result would be the same. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. Mama's egg, this was the only thing she could do. She cast a water-type mystic art towards the stiff corpse on the ground, instantly drenching the man's heart. She could only hope that the plot did not deceive her, and that the male protagonist was the only one in Mary Sue's harem who did not have a low IQ. You are. The blue figure on the ground, like the wind, blew towards Mary Sue with a swoosh. With a pained and nervous expression, he looked at Mary Sue, who was sweating profusely. Lady, what's wrong? Crash. She shouldn't have expected something like IQ to be by Mary Sue's side. What did you do to her? The man suddenly turned to glare at Zhu Yao. Are you blind? Can't you see her guiding spiritual energy? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. There's too much spiritual energy, and she's unable to make a breakthrough. That's why she's like this. Spiritual energy. The man was startled. In an instant, as though he had understood something, he immediately sat down at the side. In an instant, the berserk spiritual energy once again calmed down. All of the spiritual energy flowed towards the man, and the formation became even more complete. Zhu Yao retracted her own spiritual energy, and only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Raising her head to look at the sky, as expected, the cracks on the barrier were disappearing bit by bit. Finally, the light of the formation slowly dimmed as well. The seal was complete. However, it suddenly shone with a red light. Zhu Yao's heart sank. The scenery in front of her changed, and they instantly arrived at a spacious hall. It's time to settle the debt between us. The man slowly stood up and glared at Zhu Yao with a furious expression. Since when did she owe him a debt? I don't think I did anything right. You interrupted my incantation, caused me to suffer from the backlash of the seal, and even knocked me unconscious twice, and you're still saying you didn't do anything. Please. The one who interrupted your incantation wasn't me. You're still trying to deny it. The man coldly snorted. Today, I will let you see the consequences of offending me, Lin Qi. When his words fell, his expression turned cold, and in an instant, a powerful pressure came pouncing towards her. Zhu Yao basically could not react in time, and was instantly pressed onto the ground. Even her Azoth core cracked, and cracks appeared on it. An immense pain instantly filled her entire body. This was the pressure of a demigod. With a twist of his hand, a white lightning bolt instantly appeared in his palm. Carrying an oppressive aura and sharp killing intent, he walked towards her one step at a time. The hell, this guy must be crazy, right? Sesame! Zhu Yao loudly shouted. Roar! A gigantic mystic beast appeared out of thin air, and only then did the pressure on Zhu Yao, which was about to crush her into pieces, disappear. She panted heavily. 10th ranked demonic beast. Lin Qi was startled for a moment, and then he suddenly laughed out wantonly. Ha ha! Using a demonic beast to deal with me. You're truly foolish to the extreme. He turned to look at Sesame, a red light flashed in his black eyes, and he suddenly shouted out, "My people, you dare to be impudent." When his words fell, some sort of energy seemed to be instantly released. Sesame's entire body suddenly trembled. With a howl, it suddenly transformed into its human form and crawled on the ground. Its entire body could not help but tremble. "Sesame? What's going on?" Lin Qi, however, coldly snorted and pointed at Zhu Yao. "Kill her." Sesame really stood up and walked towards Zhu Yao. "Sesame, you're crazy." Sesame had a blank look, yet it still walked over step by step and muttered, Mistress, I'm sorry. That was Lord's order." Chapter 218. How did you know? Lin Qi was startled. "You're clearly just an Azoth practitioner, yet you're actually able to see through my true form?" The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. "You're the god beast, Qilin?" Lin Qi was even more shocked. He sized her up for a moment. "How did you know?" "It's very hard not to see, all right?" Zhu Yao's expression darkened. "Please, next time when you want to hide your identity, change your name first, all right? Lin Qi. Qilin? Do you think the entire world is illiterate? And he even introduced himself earlier, didn't he?" Lin Qi's expression sank as he nervously glanced at Yiling behind him. Seeing that she was still breaking through her bottleneck and had yet to wake up from her meditative state, he heaved a sigh of relief. Raising his hand, he added a layer of protective barrier on her before glaring at Zhu Yao. "So what if you know? I will not allow anyone who offends my god race to continue living in this world." His expression turned cold, and the red glow in his eyes grew even brighter. "Mistress." Sesame's head was instantly filled with sweat. With a pained expression, he stiffly cast an art. In an instant, dozens of icicles in the surroundings were all aimed at her. Suddenly he gritted his teeth, and red blood flowed out from the corner of his lips. "Mistress, hurry. Hurry and leave." Sesame. Looking at its current state, it clearly still had its rationality, and it did not want to attack her. However, it was being controlled by something. Zhu Yao instantly felt that something was amiss. Lin Qi loudly shouted, "Do it." In an instant, those icicles, like arrows, flew towards her. It was basically a 360-degree attack without any blind spots. Zhu Yao retreated in a flash and erected a defensive barrier. She used all of the energy in her body to block the icicles. When she raised her head, she saw even more icicles rising from Sesame's surroundings. Sesame's movements grew even stiffer. He was clearly the one who attacked, yet it seemed as though he was the one who was injured more heavily. Blood flowed out from the corner of his lips. "Hurry. Hurry and leave." "The hell, you're already in such a state. How could she possibly leave you alone?" It seemed like this was the only way. "Sesame, bear with it for a moment." Zhu Yao released her divine sense and sensed all of the water spiritual energy in the air. Then, she gathered them together and activated them the instant the second batch of icicles arrived. In an instant, a thick layer of ice spread out in the Great Hall, heading straight towards Sesame. In an instant, it was sealed within a gigantic cube of ice. Zhu Yao cast an art and immediately drew a seal on the surface of the ice block. This was one of the seals the Yugu taught her back then, sealing extinction. It was equivalent to a binding array, but it was even more powerful. Even the devil race could not escape from it. However, in the past, she had always used divine power to set up the formation, but now, she had no choice but to use spiritual power to activate it. Although he succeeded, he suffered the backlash of the seal the moment he laid it down. She could almost hear the cracking sound of her gold core. And then she spat out a mouthful of blood. "You do know some tricks, but..." Lin Qi snorted, and lightning flashed in his hand again. "You are destined to die here today." After saying that, he tightened his grip. Dozens of purple lightning bolts flew towards Zhu Yao from all directions like earth dragons. Zhu Yao instinctively wanted to retreat, however. She realized that Sesame was behind her, so she had no choice but to raise the barrier once again. However, the lightning suddenly turned into a purple flame midway and shot straight at her. That demigod pressure once again came crashing down from all directions. Zhu Yao was suppressed to the ground, and she could no longer advance. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. It seemed like she had no choice but to face it head-on. Just as the flames were about to pounce towards her, suddenly, a black figure cut in from the side. He hugged Zhu Yao and stood in front of her. Zhu Yao fiercely widened her eyes, looking at the youth who had a gentle smile on his face submerged in the flames. His voice was so light that it seemed to have come from the horizon. Big Sis Yao. It was as if she could see the day when she opened the world-crossing door. That white-clothed youth reached out a hand towards her, and with a pleading tone he said, "Little sister, be obedient. Come out, all right?" Yuing. Zhu Yao caught the youth who was falling towards her. In an instant, she was so nervous that she could not even feel her heartbeat. Yet, he still had a gentle smile on his face, as though he could not feel the miserable burnt state at all. His entire body flashed with a green light, and a moment later, a black fruit landed in her palm. Yuing. Yuing. She could sense the aura of Yu Ying's primordial spirit in the fruit, however. She was still trembling from fear. If anything were to happen to Yuing, if anything were to happen to him, she was completely unable to imagine this possibility. Big Sis Yao, I wish to sleep for a while. After a long while, his familiar voice resounded from the depths of her heart. Only then did Zhu Yao's tense heart relax a little. There's actually someone who dares to activate the teleportation formation and send himself to his death. Lin Qi coldly snorted with a face filled with disdain. You practitioners sure are stupid enough. Are you done? Recalling Yu Ying, who had returned to his original form back into his divine sense, he slowly stood up. In an instant, she simply felt the fury in the depths of her heart surging upwards. Finally, a bam sound resounded in her mind, and something instantly snapped. In her entire life, she had never been as furious as she was right now. It was as though every single cell in her body was clamoring, wanting to vent it out. Even her body was suddenly filled with an endless amount of energy. Coldly looking at the person who was smiling complacently, she took a deep breath. Then, are you prepared to kowtow and apologize? What did you say? Lin Qi frowned, as he glared at her with fiery eyes. Initially, seeing that you're a god, I didn't want to be too calculative. Zhu Yao raised her hand, and said with emphasis on every single word. But in this world, there will always be some bitches. If I don't teach them a lesson, they won't know why the flowers are red. Zhu Yao's eyes sharpened, and the fury and spiritual energy that filled her body were instantly released. With a flip of her hand, that rainbow feather instantly appeared in her hand. A gigantic lightning phoenix, without even needing to be summoned, had already appeared above her. And that rainbow feather, as though it had suddenly been activated as well, a red light flashed, and in an instant, scarlet flames covered its entire body. Its shape changed, and not even a moment later, it turned into a long sword that was emitting flames all over its body. That's the ruling plume. Lin Qi was startled, as he looked at her with a face of disbelief. How is this possible? You're actually able to activate the ruling plume of the phoenix race. Could it be that you're a god as well? I'm your mother. Zhu Yao's figure flashed, and with a wave of her hand, monstrous flames flew towards Lin Qi. That lightning phoenix let out a long cry as well, and at the same time, flew towards him. Lin Qi's first reaction was to dodge, as he dodged to the side. Unfortunately, those scarlet flames were like chains, as they instantly wrapped around his legs, forcefully dragging him back. An irresistible pressure instantly pressed down on him, rendering him unable to move. And that lightning phoenix had already flown over as well, transforming into countless lightning bolts. It struck him until he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Lin Qi puked out a mouthful of blood, and simply felt as though his organs were being torn apart. How is this possible? He was a god. Why was there actually something in this world that could harm him? Forget about the ruling plume, after all, it was a god's artifact. But why were these lightning bolts able to harm him as well? Lin Qi was in a mess. He immediately released a defensive barrier, circulated the spiritual energy in his body, and materialized those purple flames earlier, in an attempt to suppress the divine flames of the ruling plume. However, it was completely useless. Zhu Yao simply waved her sword, and the purple flames were dispersed. He had no choice but to retreat as he fought. Gritting his teeth, he immediately summoned his life origin fire. This was the purest energy of a Qilin. As expected, the moment the flames appeared, a large half of the divine flames in the surroundings which were guided by the ruling plume were extinguished. His expression turned joyous. Suddenly, a long and sharp cry resounded. The lightning phoenix once again charged down, and with a single gulp, it directly swallowed that unique flame, and then it burped. This wasn't a divine art. That lightning phoenix stopped for a moment. In an instant, other than the lightning sparks on its body, purple flames were emitting out as well, as though it had completely assimilated with his life origin fire. And in Zhu Yao's palm, a small cluster of purple flames suddenly appeared as well. Lin Qi was instantly dumbfounded. His life origin fire. This was definitely not real. Zhu Yao could not be bothered to care about the sudden surge of warmth in her body. Right now, her entire mind was filled with thoughts of beating this bastard in front of her to the point where even his mother wouldn't be able to recognize him. Seeing that he was in a daze, she immediately raised her leg and kicked him away. With a poo sound, Lin Qi was sent flying like a showerhead. As he puked out blood, he was sent flying several dozen meters away. However, before he could even land on the ground, he was once again pulled back by a cluster of flames. Then the lightning phoenix once again struck him until he was charred on the inside and tender on the outside. And so on. In an instant, the scene had turned into a one-sided slaughter by Zhu Yao. Lin Qi had already been completely beaten like a dog. After an unknown period of time, Zhu Yao finally retracted her own sword intent and walked towards Lin Qi, who was on the ground. Lin Qi was completely terrified as he looked at the person who had a face filled with killing intent with extreme fear. His entire body could not help but tremble. Mama! Why had no one ever told him that human practitioners were so terrifying? What demeanor did he have in an instant? What pride? What dignity of a race? He had eaten them all up. With a plop, he knelt on the ground with all 5 of his limbs on the ground. Great deity, I was wrong. Zhu Yao's feet stabilized and stopped 3 steps away from him. Great deity. Lin Qi no longer had the awe-inspiring look he had earlier. His face was filled with regret as he raised his head with mucus and a mouthful of blood. I was really wrong. Great deity, please let me go. Wrong. Zhu Yao stabbed the long sword in her hand to the side, and the corner of her lips rose. Her smile was especially gentle and kind, and she gently said, "If apologies are useful, why would we still need the police?" Her voice instantly turned cold. Raising her hand, she threw a punch towards his face. Using all the strength in her body, she sent a round of punches towards his face, and every single punch landed on his flesh. Who told you to bully my sesame? Who told you to motherfucking hit my Yuing? Apologize? Is a single apology enough to make up for their injuries? I'm telling you, no way. How did you injure them? I'll make sure you pay them back. You actually dare to call yourself a god with your pathetic appearance? In the future, if you dare to call yourself a god, I'll beat you until you can't even take care of yourself. Who told you to bully people? Who told you to act cool? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.